right, here we are, actually in Oceanside, California. Had to come down to take care of some business, and was able to get in front of my. It's interesting because when I see you online, I'm like, I feel like this guy's my friend, but you're sort of a mystery. Amir Bichay, SandManGoesPewPew.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, my dude.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for allowing me to be on here, man. It just means the world.
Oh well, you're welcome. I just like sitting down with cool people, cool dudes, and having good conversation.
Yeah.
And I have a hunch, and had a hunch that if I could get in front of you, we could have a really cool conversation, but also a little bit of a different conversation as it relates to some of the people we have on the show. And I'm going to use this word. I don't mean this in a negative way, but from an agenda perspective, people are coming from very specific backgrounds.
Yeah.
They're coaches, they're instructors. They have these experiences, say in the firearms space, which obviously the show is very firearms heavy. You have a different background, and I want to talk about it. But dude, I think as I've been following you and kind of paying attention to you, and I know people that are close to you for like years. But it wasn't until it was November of last year.
Yeah, the CRW.
Yeah, so California Range Weekend. I finally got an intro from our mutual friend Alex, who I immediately thanked once we finally got this thing. I was like, dude, that intro you made, we're finally making this happen. So shout out to Alex out there who put us together. So that speaks to California gun culture, which I want to talk about, and the tightness of the community. And
the neglect of that community.
Same. So there's so much there. So anyway, man, I'm doing all the talking right now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's hear about you. What's going on with the Sandman and All Eyes?
So what's up, guys? I'm Amir, and what I'm trying to do is really try to bring more of an open view and a better a perception of the community, especially in the state of California. So basically, my background is I've got no Leo Mill background. I'm just a guy who shoots religiously, and I enjoy it. Believe it or not, it was my out. It was my out from my stresses of school, me taking care of my parents, and I'll divulge a little bit. My pops got dementia, and my mom is elderly, so I help take care of them, and my sisters help out as well. And the whole shooting thing became kind of my out. And so I can, people will go party. People will go, drink, go do whatever. Hey, man, to each their own. Mine was I get to go shoot. And I was fortunate enough, there's a range that's about 15 minutes from my house. And I can do a lot of cool stuff with it. You know what I mean? So that's typically where it came from, where it stemmed from. But it all kind of really started, I'd say, probably 15 years ago-ish, somewhere around there, where I bought my first pistol from a hardware store where you can buy PVC piping and, and you can buy pistol and some ammo. And it was my first pistol was a 1911. And yes, I know people are going to be like, how funny of you to like a 19... Hey, man, one of my CCWs is a 1911. Okay. Just because I love that gun. And that's kind of where it stemmed from. But like really the training aspect and the really getting into it is probably like the last 5 or 6 years with a good buddy of mine, Josh, who also runs a business called Develop EQM. Great dude, awesome guy. He's the one who really kind of helped me build that competitive spirit a little bit more. I was kind of burned out with school, work, helping take care of my parents. So that's kind of where it is. And then with the whole, so fast forward with the whole All Eyes thing, what I'm trying to do is to really build a collaborative effort with the Leo Mill performance shooters, the competitive shooters, all that type of stuff, especially in the state of California. I grew up in the county of Los Angeles, hence the All Eyes and the LA thing, right? Huge Dodger fan and all. And I oftentimes feel like California has a lot of times been neglected when it comes to this type of training, and people just very standoffish. Because I get it, man. The gun laws here suck.
They're wacky.
They're terrible.
They're wacky.
And it's unfortunate. It's just the way it is. But I oftentimes feel like, the firearms community has neglected the people in the state of California. Oftentimes you'll see a lot of instructors. How many times do you see them put California on the map? Maybe once, maybe twice. How many times do you see them put Texas, Vegas, Utah, 5, 10, 20 times? And I get it. I understand where they're coming from. But again, there's a huge firearms culture in the state of California. And I mean, they were saying at one point, there were like, I think 9 or 10 million firearms that were sold at like the height of the pandemic. In the state of California.
Just alone, yeah.
Yeah, so like that should kind of speak volumes. And there's a lot of people that I know who were never really into the firearm space, never really cared for the training. some of them would be like, oh, that you're just training for the apocalypse. You're just waiting to shoot something. It's like, no, man.
Yeah.
You need
It's
to get there.
misunderstood.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. So I've been seeing a lot more of the kind of transition, I guess, if you will, where a lot of them are like, hey, man, so, we noticed that you train a lot, and, we've always kind of said, would you be willing to help us, buy a firearm, be able to, like, where do I buy one? How do I go about
the
doing
entry
this?
level stuff?
Yeah, and all this type of stuff in the training. And I was like, oh, and then I didn't immediately respond with, oh, I got you. See, I told you.
Right.
No, I was like, no, dude, absolutely. And a lot of times they'll just be like, wow, you're not going to be an a-hole about it. I was like,
because that's been their experience or just their overall expectation.
So why do I don't need to have an I got you, because there's no point, and you aren't understanding the idea of self-preservation and how important that is. A lot of us do it for recreation, but also do it as far as a defensive mechanism. Like, you have to have, people will buy a firearm, but, say, I don't really need the training. And I'm like, that is a poor way of looking at it.
It's awful logic.
Yeah, and it's terrible, because it's like one of those things that mantra that's always been saying, you own every round that you send down range.
Yep.
And it's like something that's stuck in me, and always would stuck, especially like when I took a structure assessment course with the guys over at Core Vision. Great group of dudes. And, being able to train in that type of environment and being able to understand that. Am I going to be in a team environment with my nods? Probably not.
No.
But what was really interesting to me was understanding the concept of processing. I'm a huge proponent. Like, I kind of have this little mantra that says process greater than everything. And it stemmed from Kyle, the head instructor over there, who would always say, shoot as fast as your eyes can process things. And that's where the whole processing came into play, hence the all eyes. Oftentimes we hear, I'm all ears, right? You're focused on what they're saying, right? Same thing with all eyes. I'm focused on what I'm doing, whether I'm running a pistol, a carbine, whether I'm on a precision rifle trying to read wind, whatever it may be. I'm having to process what I'm doing.
There's a lot going in.
You know what I mean?
Input,
So that's where the whole, like, me really getting better at all genres of the firearm space, if you will. I'll be honest with you, I kind of pride myself on that. And it's cool to be able to learn and to keep learning. And ultimately, it ended up being to my benefit, because a lot of people will tell me, hey, man, thanks for being the same person as you are in real life, as opposed to what we see on the internet.
One of the best compliments you can get.
Yeah, man. It was crazy, because, like, being introduced to the whole SHOT Show space and all that stuff, like, I was like, what are people talking about? But then you interact with people, and then I'm like, wow, y'all can't really?
Yeah.
This is what's happening?
Yeah, well, I think that goes back to what you were saying with people reaching out to you and expecting maybe like a negative response or not so positive. There's a lot to unpack here, man. I think you hit so many notes for me that I felt and I guess heard, but wasn't sure what I was hearing when I sort of re-entered into this space. I mean, we talk about the space, we talk about social media a lot, because a lot of the space kind of lives and breathes in social media. It's a good way to get information out there, and it's coming at you all the time. And I hate that we always talk about it, but it provides that gateway to get that education or to reach out to somebody, because this is not something, it's not a sport you're watching on TV. It is very it's actionable, right? So there's a demonstration, there's movement involved, there's actual things. It's not something you can just read about, only read about, and get to the next level. That visual piece, being able to see the video and run it back or watch it multiple times. There's so much value in that. It's just interesting how somehow that gets just leveraged in the wrong way so many times. But again, going back to the notes, there's a few things here. It's like the first thing you said was, I was using it, firearms, just shooting in general was kind of like an outlet for me. Had you been shooting before? How did shooting even come up for you in your life?
Like a lot of my family members, especially like, because my background as far as family-wise are from Egypt, and a lot of them did have firearms, and a lot of them owned farms and all that type of stuff too. My pops was in the Egyptian military, stuff like that. So I was always introduced into it, not nearly as, I guess, as hardcore as I am kind of now in it. But I've always been introduced into it. I've always been exposed to it and whatnot.
That's an interesting thing, because that part of the world has had conflict
all the time
since the dawn of time.
Yeah, it's like 1,800 years.
So I mean, you grow up there, and it's like it's just part of the life. You don't think about it any differently. You're around it. It's not like everybody's carrying guns around. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's just been a part of like your grandfather's grandfather probably had, some type of weapon, and then those things escalate over time and things get passed down. Okay. So it wasn't totally foreign. This is not something you just like walked out and did. It was like, okay, it's been around. It's like, this is interesting. You have access to doing it, maybe where you live
and
or whatever.
Training too.
Yeah. And right. Everything's good. Okay. So that answers that question for me. Like, where did this come into it for you? All right. So did Dad take you out and do this, or
no?
It was just you?
Actually, not. It was just me. It was funny because it was a buddy of mine, old buddy of mine from years ago, Ruben. We went and we'd shoot out in the desert, just go have fun and kind of enjoy ourselves. And it was just sporadic. Oh, cool! I went to shoot, and then it became a little more formal, going out to like ranges and whatnot, maybe taking a course or two. But again, like within the last 5 or 6 years, that's where it really started to like, okay, let's take classes. This was with my buddy Josh, that I mentioned before. We really started to hone in on really getting better, not just going to the range just to plink some rounds, going to the range with like a purpose. Like, all right, dude, I want to learn, and that's, it's cool to go and plink and enjoy and whatnot, but I refuse to go now if there's no, like, something that we're going to get out of, and I try to tell that to people, the people I try to help, like as far as if I'll instruct them privately or whatever, it's like, hey man, we're not going to just kind of, diddly dag over here, and we're gonna legit learn. And a lot of times they're just like, well, I just, I don't need to do as much as what you're doing. What am I doing? Like,
Good question.
It's like you have to understand as to why I go into this and why I do it, because there's so much to learn. People oftentimes will plateau and assume that, well, I took this class, or I did this in the military, law enforcement, this, and this. And you're like, well, no, dude, it's always evolving. It's always evolving.
I love a couple things you said right there. First off, you can relate this to like financial, financial planning or, financial life. I'll call it financial fitness. You can talk about your health and fitness. Like if you're just walking into a situation, whether that's, I got a bunch of money and I'm just going to start randomly trading stocks or, I'm just going to randomly get into crypto or whatever. Or on the fitness side, like I'm just going to walk into the gym today and we'll see what happens. What's going to wind up happening is like you might get a little sweaty. Maybe you'll make a little bit money, on in that other example. Maybe you don't. Maybe things go terribly wrong. And not that like I don't want to be extreme about it. Like you break your neck, working out, or you lose your all of your money in it, as a day trader or whatever else. Just that it starts setting patterns up for being not successful longer term. And I think what it also does is it you limit yourself in the understanding of what it is that you could be doing from a potential perspective. Like, so there's a studying that goes into this. And so then once you study a little bit, you recognize how much, I guess, return on investment of time that you put in. Then it starts becoming a little bit more fun to the point that it can become obsessive. Again, going back to finances or fitness or whatever else, where people are just like, it can almost be like maybe a character flaw, kind of like obsessiveness. But I love where you're going with that, and because I think that's missed for a lot of people. Like it's not plinking. We're going out and we're training. There's some purpose to what we're trying to get out of today. And the onlooker looks at that as like, well, that's some serious shit. Yeah. And so, you're taking classes, and I'm looking at. So I look at the things that you post or whatever. I'm like, this is a dude that trains fundamentals, right? The way you show it, the way you showcase it, makes it look and sound good. And we're going to get back to the fun part here in a second, or in a few minutes. But it's just the fundamentals that you're doing. And to the onlooker who doesn't know, that looks like extreme. Yeah. And so there's all this. There's this other faction of people maybe on the other end that already do really well with the fundamentals and are doing such a great job with it. And so they don't talk about that anymore. They're doing more sexy shit, for lack of a better term.
Dude, I see
the smile on your face, like, I get that. And some people ask me about this sometimes. I'm going, that's the best part about what I see you put out.
I appreciate it.
Is that you're not trying to do that. Yeah. Like, and again, there's no agenda for you to try to do that. You're just like, hey, the other one, like I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, was safety manipulation. Yeah. So important. Right, it's such a based on fundamental, but the way you packaged it, was not like a guy that spent. I'll just be no offense to my friends and people that I've had a guest on the show. You didn't spend 15, 20 years in the military, so there's military jargon coming out. You're not in law enforcement, so that's not coming out. It's just we're talking about where you put your thumb. as it relates to the safety.
Yeah, and that's what's a trip.
And how to make this work best for you. That's
exactly.
it. Let's leave all the other fat and all the other jargon and shit out of this.
And that whole and it all stemmed from a buddy of mine. Like he was just getting his AR and he was trying to manipulate it. Like we would just do the ready up or just like a one reload one. But anytime he would try to manipulate the safety or trigger or whatever, he would end up manipulating the safety with his like support side hand. And it was just weird because it's a subconscious thought, not muscle memory. We always hear muscle memory. It doesn't really exist. It's subconscious thought. I get what they're getting at. Again, I digress. But what people end up doing is that they'll freak out. So that little up drill, just being able to focus on manipulating the safety properly and where I put my thumb at, everybody's like, wow, I've never seen that. Because that sexiness is the only thing that they see on the internet is the super cool gray tones, edgy videos and all that, which is great, man. I like watching those too, but it gets lost in the void. And you're trying to put out better information because I want more people to be informed.
This is the way you just put that together. Like, we talk about muscle memory and people want to get real scientific about the whole thing. You're like, whatever. Like, that's not really that important. What's important is that you understand what the drill is, what you're supposed to get out of it, and why and that's what I get from it is like, I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it is. I'm not trying to get outside of my lane, or whatever. I just gonna want you to get this good information. And I honestly think that's why you are as well-liked and as popular as you are. I'm sure there's a bunch of knuckleheads out there that, will throw that. If you're going to play in the space, you're going to get that, It's just what it is. It's just what it is.
I just got it just recently about like, well, you haven't been shot at. I was like, but all I'm doing is a safety manipulator. Like, dude, like, what does that have I'd never talked about tactics, but God, it's like, you get burned out, man.
Yeah, it's tough. Okay, so we're kind of going down this road here. I want to come back to so you take your 1911 out to the desert, you're shooting with your buddy. That starts to pick up like, hey, we should do some training. We start going some courses. The world gets opened up a little bit more for you. Now you have a little bit more purpose for the reason you're going out there. I heard you say there you're starting to explore all the different things. It's like, I don't just want to be a really good 1911 shooter, right? I'm going to get on the carbine of the rifle now. And then I also heard you say like the longer range stuff as we get into maybe precision rifle. And you're starting to explore, right? And you're starting to explore. And you're also building confidence, which shows up through social media and kind of what we're seeing, and you start putting stuff out. When did that start?
The what? The confidence building?
Yeah, well, but also like the putting it out on over the airwaves the way you're doing it. I don't really know.
I think it was like about 4 years ago, when I took my first like real like official course. It was with if you remember Aaron Baruga with Guerrilla Approach.
Okay.
Yeah, so he doesn't. I don't think he really even teaches anymore because I think he works for the DoD now, but. I took his class, and that's what really kind of opened my mind. Mind you, the guy was not only a former Green Beret, but he didn't have a huge following. He just happened to be close by. The price was within reason for his class, so I took it. He's the one who really opened my eyes to be able to separate the bullshit, to know, to be like, okay. And that's what a lot of times, a lot of the people in the firearms community don't give credit to is to the like average guy like myself.
I love that you're doing this right now.
Yeah, it's like I can sit there and decipher between, well, I know this is BS and this is BS. I can probably just take this course and I kind of have an understanding. It's like there's not enough focus on that. It's like, well, no, this is how it is. It's like, yo, dude, like, hey, I can make a decision for myself. There's a lot of snake oil, as we've always seen. Everybody's got a market. Everybody's got a gimmick. It's cool, man. The market, it's totally fine to sell stuff. Totally fine, but I'm a huge proponent of shooter first, product second. And I do like promoting product, but it's with the intention of being a shooter first. You know what I mean? So that class with Guerrilla Approach with Aaron Baruga, he's the one who really kind of opened my eyes to like, all right, now I need to learn really how to run this gun in certain spaces and be able to manipulate, be able to do a reload, go to my pistol, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so he gives you sort of the framework to walk away from that course or that class at that time and then put in your own time. Yeah. So he's empowering you to do this on your own, to really make the practice.
That's what caused the spark.
Yeah, not go to another class necessarily. Yeah. However, if you do this long enough, like you're always wanting to reach. It's like, well, what's the new thing? And this person seems to be putting out good information. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's not my point. Okay, so you have this good experience. That's great. How many bad experiences did you have before you did you have to have before you knew that was a really good experience?
To me, I wouldn't even really call it a bad experience. I would call it a training lesson. Learning on what is really training and what's not. I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole being like, we all know the old school going to a class, the old front sight classes, the old NRA instructor courses, that type of stuff. There's nothing wrong with them, but it's
There's nothing that great about them either.
Yeah, dude, it's old. It's we got to kind of move forward and progress and do a little bit better. So to me, it wasn't so much as like being a bad thing. It was just kind of learning. But ultimately, the thirst for knowledge is what really kind of like what I gravitated towards. Like, oh, okay, cool. What I can use this. Well, I don't really need this. Well, what's this? And every time I see a new gun that comes out, I'm like, all right, cool. It does the same thing as this gun.
It's still a gun.
Yeah, like, dude, and it just, you get so wrapped up into all that stuff. But for me, man, like, it was just based on more on the lines of just learning as I'm going. So
enjoying the journey.
Yeah, man. And again, that was the biggest part about it, is just the learning aspect of it. And I think a lot of people veer away from that because they immediately want to instruct. They immediately want to get into this whole idea. And I'm like, dude, there's a lot more. Hey, because a lot of people ask me, we need precision rifle training. There's a lot that goes into precision rifle. And for me, I still think I need more lessons and more training in order. I'll help out like a good buddy of mine or instruct a good buddy of mine. On a class level, I'll refer Tyler Hughes from Axorn. I'll refer Phil Vallejo, Kalen Wojcik, hopefully I pronounced that last name right, of Modern Day Sniper. Those are just a few guys Buck Doyle, who really kind of like really helped me train. And a lot of times people will just look at the following that I have and be like, well, he's got to be the instructor for the whole like precision rifle thing. And I'm like, no, man, like I'll do my best to share what I've learned and to be able to do what I can, but there's a lot more that goes into it. And the classes typically are like, 2 days long, 3 days, because there's like classroom work that's involved. It's not just, all right, cool, I'm going to get out and shoot.
We're up on the line,
and I'm a sniper shit. And I'm like, because now it's like the CQB thing is out. Now it's all of a sudden everybody's going into the precision rifle, which is cool, man. I think we should be trained in both. But dude, I don't really subscribe into the whole ebbs and flows and the whatever happens to be trending at the moment. It's like, no, dude, I'm going to keep learning whatever I want to learn.
I love that. The putting it out there, understanding actually what you got, what the positives are, and the training lessons. The term you used, quote unquote, was training lessons. And you have to train in order to get those lessons, right? So that's training with other people, that's training on your own, that's training with buddies. And some people might be going, well, look, man, you only took a class. How can you, and then you practiced a little bit. How can you be an instructor? I didn't hear you say that. I heard what you said was, so for those people out there that are going, you're just another guy that might be labeling yourself as an instructor because it's a low barrier of entry. It's not what I heard you say. What I heard you say was, people have asked you for help and you've got enough base knowledge and some confidence in that knowledge to help them get going in the right direction. If you want more, then you should go see these other people. So there is some level of, even if you don't have a lot of experience or a lot of instruction under your belt, giving somebody some knowledge and helping to share that knowledge and teaching them helps you learn. Right. And as so long as you're not going, beyond your ability level, right? And
outside of your lane.
Outside of, again, that lane, whatever that happens to be, I think that's really valuable. And I think, people would respect the teaching process a lot more if they spent maybe a little bit more time in but basically the whole instructor space for that matter, like whether you're getting into it or you're just watching it from the outside looking in. I think they may have a lot more respect for it if they spent a little time trying to teach somebody, just the basics. One person, and the hardest people to teach are the people that you already know. Right. Quite frankly, like your girlfriend or, your brother, your sister, people that are like, I don't want to listen to you. But again, there's some value in repeating things and then listening to yourself and seeing how people react to that puts you in a better position to then be an advocate for how you open this up with, which is bringing the culture and the community together in a little bit of a different way, because you have these different perspectives.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Like, I'm trying to, I would like, because like with all lies, like, dude, I have cool swag, it's like my creative side, but instruction is where I want to go with it. And it's not because I just want to just instruct and make money, because I'm trying to bring more of that in the state of California, where again, we've been neglected so damn, everybody's like, just move. I'm like,
no, it's not an option.
Bro, it's not how it works, and a lot of times people are under the impression that every state is safe, and we can get down to that rabbit hole later on, but it's like, dude, you have to be aware of culturally and especially in the social media realm, how people are so easily influenced at any given time, you know, and people tend to forget about that, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I do know, and I think this is a good place to kind of maybe transition into this. So I think I mentioned this, and maybe before we got started, and then I may have alluded to it just a second ago. So when I watch the stuff that you're putting out, again, we talked about like the safety manipulation video and how good I thought that was, because it was just packaged very nicely, very, very tightly. You're having fun doing it. You didn't have to say a lot, right? You're talented, and you have skill in the way that you deliver the information. For me, it resonates with me. I'm like, so basic. Like, we don't need to overcomplicate this stuff.
Add a whole bunch of words.
Yeah. There's not a word salad there. Yet it's all there. Like all the good stuff is there, and that might not be for everybody, right? But for me, it resonates, and so because this is my show, you're on the fucking show because I think it's cool, right? But for other people, they might be looking at, well, I need more substance than this. I need more of the vernacular, you know, and
the edgy gray tones
and all that. Yeah, you know,
cool
I need more production.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that
it's like a commercial every time you see these things now.
Yeah. So going back to being relatable, I think it makes you very relatable. Here's the other thing, and then I have some more questions. When I see you out there doing it, it's like, okay, you're in the desert, right? You pulled up in your truck there. You're you know, you got the hatchback open. Yeah. You're wearing your gear, or you have your stuff. That looks like California. Right, that looks like most shooters in California if they're out there shooting on the range. You're not out there in a class with a bunch of people. You're out there on your own, or maybe you're with a buddy or two that are either in frame or out of frame. For that matter, it doesn't matter. My point is like, you are showing what California gun culture looks like for most people. Again, when you get in these I guess I would say this, when you get in the more highly populated areas, you mentioned you grew up in LA County. LA County is massive, right? So that stretches a lot of, you can go from very, very metropolitan to very, very rural in a matter of an hour. Right. It's the same up in the Bay Area. Huge concentrations of people, which limit the, you know, some access that you may have there. But a couple hours out, it looks the same. It might just be a little bit different terrain. You're in the foothills somewhere. So here's a dude, right, with his gun, and he's got his hatchback open, and he's on his truck, and he's not out there like on a range for a social media event. Yeah. He's out there training, right? And he's just sharing part of what he's training for the day. And that is, I think for a lot of people, very relatable. And it does do a very good job of kind of showcasing this is what it looks like in California. And I don't think most people that may be looking at you from outside, going back to people going, just move kind of thing or whatever, recognize how many people look just like you doing that 7 days a week. They're at any given day during the week, you go out there, you'll find tons and tons of guys like you that are out there doing that. They think it's like that we're very limited, like our population is very small.
Because everybody looks at it as California's LA and San Francisco.
Oh yeah, it's like all surfboards and flip-flops or flannels and
hipster kids and non-GMO. No, bro, like it's not. Like stop. You know what I mean?
It's there's, I mean, you could use the word diversity, and I hesitate with that because, you know, in some ways California is very diverse, and in other ways I don't think it's diverse at all, depending which angle you're looking at it from. True. But the point of that is that there's this misconception of what it is. And you're a really good representative of what I believe it truly is. Nice. And how most of the people within that community, not all of them, act and want to be portrayed, right? And it's very much different than I think a lot of people from the outside looking in would think it is, or what they get from those people that are doing the more flashy gray tone video, you know, whatever, that are known for being in California. A couple of the things with that. The when we talk about like the instructor side and how we're sort of neglected, there is a group. I think I like to talk about this like kind of circles within circles within circles. Like there's a group of instructors in California that I think do a very, very good job with their media and the information that they put out. There's a lot of good instructors, but I think there's a group that kind of dominates. Let's just say they dominate with the following, and I think how the algorithm maybe favors them and whatever else, and I think they do a really good job with it. So this is a positive thing. And then there's some other ones that are maybe just outside of that circle that interact with those people that are trying to maybe push it a little bit beyond where it needs to be pushed, and it may be giving off maybe a little bit of it looks edgy, or there's there's a little bit more of a personal, let's say, agenda attached to it or whatever else.
Yeah, because everybody's trying to make money, dude.
Yeah,
and ultimately,
that's it.
I get it, and that's what it is. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing when it comes to that is like people can't really separate the two.
That's my point.
And like they're just trying to, hey man, I'm all for making money. I want to make money too. Everybody does, right? But it's just they seem to forget about it. And I think what ends up happening is that they push it so far where they build this false perception of themselves, where it's not really who they are anymore. It goes back to what I was saying, where everybody's like, hey man, thanks for being the same guy in real life as you are on the internet. It's that idea. I've been told like, bro, you need to start doing this, or you need to get the sleazy chicks on there and do some sex. I'm like, dude, like, but that takes away of what I'm trying. Well, it gets you more views. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like I don't. Like I'd be like this isn't my my main source of income. Yeah. So I don't really need to do that.
I love that part.
So it's just like, and plus with my All Eyes page, I've got like legit companies following it. The last thing I want to do is just, start becoming some whatever trendy page. Nothing wrong because that's their space, but that's not what I'm trying to do. Like there's a lot of people that I've really stopped caring for. A lot of the big name dudes in the industry because quite frankly, like I don't listen to people that I can't learn from. I'm not.
That seems very logical.
Yeah, like I'm not going to sit there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes to vegetate in front of a computer screen or a laptop or whatever.
A YouTube video.
Yeah, or YouTube video, just kind of staring and watching this video of dudes just screwing around all day. I'm not getting any info, any valuable information. If it's entertainment, cool. Leave it for the people who want to watch the entertainment. That's not what and then people always be like, well, you're mad, you're jealous. I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, why is it that, why do I have to be forced to follow the crowd?
Yeah, it's like if you're either there or you're here, right? And if you're here, that means you can't be there. And if you're there, you can't be here.
Exactly.
And so if you make a choice, like you've automatically somehow, without saying it, made a statement about this other thing, which isn't the case at all. That's one of those, talking, and I use this term a lot, circling back, going back to sorry, I lost my place there, but just how you're putting out the information and the instructor that has an agenda and whatever else. I guess like when I see you and you're putting that out there, and you're not trying to make a I don't know, like a stink about this. You're not being controversial, right? You're not being edgy. You're not doing this has been referred to as the slow-mo look back mag dump, video kind of stuff, right? And so, those get a lot of views and whatever else. Yeah. You mentioned something there, and this is going back to how I think people can relate to. This is where I was going. Got my brain back for a sec. And that is, this is not a job for most people.
Yeah.
They look at it and they think it would be a sexy job to have and a cool job to have, but it's not how you're making your living. Yeah. So what you put out there, listening to what you're saying here, what you're putting out there, knowing that you're not making money off of this, like a lot of money, right? Like this is not how you put food on the table. Yeah. So you don't have to risk even, it's what's the risk? The risk is in fucking up your integrity in what you said you were trying to do in the first place.
And that's what's super hard. Like man, did I want to go down that rabbit hole? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it, man. I cannot fall. Even though
you can't go back on that.
Yeah. If I don't get nearly those views or clicks or shares or whatever, I know that small group of people were in there watching it because they wanted to learn, as opposed to the people who are just vegetating, looking at how sexy and edgy the video is, and that's all it is. Because, and it's not to their fault, it's how social media is ran. It's ran on the engagement, it's ran on those quick dopamine fixes, and I get it. I understand, and it's funny because like kind of a side note, like with this whole idea of influencer. It's always been an interesting concept, especially in the firearm space, and most notably like social media as a whole. Influencer is often synonymous. A lot of people look at it as being synonymous to like something with like negative connotation, right? And I get it because unfortunately the way it's ran is traffic. Traffic is what drives it. What drives that traffic? The controversy, the bullshit, the edgy, I need to post something that's going to create engagement. And it's like, well, no. And then you'll notice it most notably like in the Leo Mill space, they'll always refer to the influencers in a negative way. And I'm like, but wait a minute, you're kind of an influencer too, but you never refer to yourself as one, which is what I find interesting. So and I hate to break this to anybody, if you provide support to this industry, whether it's through product development, research and development, you tech a company, you sell gear, patches, hats, you're influencing somebody's decision in one way, shape, or form. You're an influencer by definition. Stop always referring to the influencer as being the bad dude. Why don't we start to really focus on the positive aspects? There's a lot of positive aspects that have really helped me out in this industry. Like, you know, people like with Aaron Bruga. Like, I also look at that young girl, I think her name is Allison Youngpaw. She's a precision rifle. She's like 50. Yeah.
She's a savage.
Yeah, dude, she's insane with that thing. And I'm like, but no, we're not. You'll notice oftentimes whole bunch of group of people will circle jerk each other, talk about how much shit they don't like.
Yes.
And then focus on how theirs is better. But it's rare that you see those group of people talk about how much they don't like it, but then, hey, there are these other positive aspects. So are these people who are circle jerking each other, are they really in it to point out the BS? Because there's a lot of BS. There's a lot of snake oil. Mm-hmm. Are they really doing it? Or is it to help and create their, or enlarge their engagement?
Get more attention.
You know, so for me, like, I do my best, like, to try to really focus on people, post people, you know, people like the guys at Core Vision, like Kyle Manzano over there, Manzano Tactical, you know, things like that. Josh, my boy, Develop, you know, things like that. And there's a plethora of people, but they don't get the notoriety because, well, they're just putting out good info. And I'm like, but that's bad?
No, it isn't. I think that when you go back to California gun culture, circling that back to there, like, there are so many of those people in California, and there's a couple of things. I think at some level, I think sometimes they're limited because, well, let's be honest, like, it's not a popular thing here. Like, you almost have to. This is the interesting part about California gun culture. I just recently had Kyle DeFore on, living legend as far as I'm concerned, sort of in the space. And I asked him about it. Actually, he volunteered it. We were talking about him coming out to California a few times a year to handle some contracts and some other classes that he teaches. And he was going, that the culture out there could be the strongest in the country. It was, something was close to that, maybe second strongest. Like, he's always very impressed, number one, with the quality of shooter that he runs into out in California, but also just the community in general and how the difference in, it's warm, but it's very connected. And so going back, the interesting part about that is like, if you live in these major metropolitan areas, particularly where let's just say it's very anti-gun, like, you're an alien, right? You are definitely outnumbered, right, from a socio-political perspective. So making yourself known and putting yourself out there it's not popular at all. Like, if you're that guy across the street, like, you see, there's a lot of, go back to the term influencers out there that are filming in their yard, like literally in their driveway or in their garage with the garage door open, and then, they're in their neighborhood or in their backyard. There's no fences. There's it's whatever else. The neighbors know what the hell you're doing, what they're doing out there, and it's not weird. And what I guess what I mean by that is, like, if you do that in California, like, the police are getting called. Like, they're showing up. Like, there's that much fear around it. It's like, that can't be normal, what this person is doing, whether that's training in their front yard or dry firing in their garage. Or if you try dry firing in your garage with your garage door open in the state of California, in most places, the cops are getting called. Right? Sure. Like, there's a man with a gun versus, that dude's over there dry firing. Like, I'm not suggesting that, you live somewhere else, like, you should be dry firing with your garage door open in your garage. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a little bit different. So when you go back to these instructors that are not as well known, I think a lot of that they have to be very careful about how they position themselves and how that impacts them, because there are downstream effects. Now, some of, these, other red-blooded Americans out there would say, well, then you're just not a proud American and you're not. Okay, bro. That is exactly okay, dude. There are impacts. There are impacts to your kids that go to school. There are impacts to your spouse, right, who goes to work, who has to deal with people that may see that stuff and may have to deal with that. There could be implications to your business. I know people that have been railroaded because somebody at the city level, at the county level, didn't like them for what they do, not because of that anything they're doing is illegal. They're just like, we can't have this. So, there's implications. And so you have to be careful about how you put out that content. Go back, like, those circles within the circles. There's this ring outside this more popular or this more well-known circle of lots of people. It's a fairly large circle of people that are doing, like what you said, you dropped a couple of names there. And I think it's becoming more well-known. And I think the message is getting out because of people like that and because of people like you. So much so that it's interesting. In the last month, I've talked to multiple out-of-state, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag for, like, the CRW guys, but for Tony Molina and his team over there that's putting together California Range Weekend this year. But there are some really well-known and highly respected people coming from the right coast, the opposite coast, to come out here to teach that. And I know that there's a couple of other people that are already putting dates on the calendar from the East Coast to be out here because they want to. Because they want to spread their wings. They recognize there is strong culture out here, and they've heard about it. And I think that's largely due to two things. One, people like you that are putting the message out in a positive and I want to say like welcoming way, right? It's like we're not a bunch of douchebags out here, running flashy videos with sleazy chicks with tape over their nipples and a gun in their hand kind of thing. That's not what we're like. We're not also running around with surfboards and tank tops, or whatever. Or flannels and
flannels, bro.
There's nothing wrong with flannels, but with skinny jeans and whatever else. But they're also seeing people from California go there, or showing up. Let's just say maybe halfway. They're going out to other classes to meet with other people in places like Texas, and the word is getting back from the instructors, from those instructors to other instructors in other parts of the country. Like, dude, these guys coming from California, they're good dudes, right? They know their stuff. They train hard. They're surprised. And I think that's created curiosity, and that curiosity is starting to bridge that gap a little bit. And for that, I think we have to give credit, like I said, to people like you and those circles within the circles for getting that information out. And I think that over time, it's going to take some more time, but you stop feeling neglected. Also knowing that there's a ton, with that comes opportunity from a lot of other people that can be knuckleheads and kind of start to erode what's been built.
Unfortunately, when the erosion happens, typically it's when they need to increase their engagement and their humanship, and it's so blatantly obvious. And to even go and to expand outside of like the United States, I was at this last SHOT Show. I was at the Eberly Stock party, so I'm affiliated with Eberly Stock, and there were some guys that were from French SAS, and they were the Chimera strategy guys. They come out and they train with guys like Mike Ackenbach, if I said it correctly.
Mark Ackenbach.
And he's just, your civilian shooter, but he's really good at what he does.
Oh, he's amazing.
And they go and train with him, and they go to the Ohio Range Day, whatever. But to see them be able to be like, you got French SAS dudes coming out to the United States to train with, this should tell you the level of like info that we can actually put out, to be able to, like, you have these dudes, and they were super chill, good dudes, really awesome. And it was just something that, like, it goes beyond the firearms. It goes beyond that. It goes the ability to train, the ability to learn what we can learn. And people are just like, well, it's always, you're waiting for the end of the world. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not waiting for the end of the world, guys.
I wonder, so that's an interesting thing, because people are like, so what's really going on out there? And you mentioned like the doomsday prepper thing, like the misconception, training for the end of the world. You mentioned Mark. I think Mark does an amazing job. In the building of the knowledge base. And I wonder, like, just what your take is on this, because my thing a little bit with, again, honing in on the California gun culture is there's a cause here. Like, we are all, I always like to say, like, we're behind the wall, right? Like, again, things are wacky here, but and the wall is expanding now, and I think we could talk about that too, but we're behind the wall. And because we're behind the wall, we know we're behind the wall. And so we want to be with other people that are behind the wall. And that does create some sense of community and camaraderie that we're
that
doing.
Bond and that strength.
Totally. And I think that gets overlooked a lot where you go to other places. And I just was recently talking to somebody literally on the opposite coast who's going, look, we're having a really tough time kind of bringing community here. There's just a lot of resistance. And as we start to get into it, it's almost like it's a privilege that they have to have the kind of, let's say, freedom and flexibility to do the things that they have. And because they have that freedom and flexibility, it may also be a damaging to the culture piece, or a limit. I don't want to say damaging. Let's just say a limiting factor to building strength in the community where they all can come together and see things commonly but different. and have debates and support one another.
Yeah.
It's more like, nah, you do your thing, I do mine. Like, it's fucking America. It's a free country. We'll just kind of do. Well, sometimes in California, we don't feel like that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of also stemmed from like the conservative influencers, the big names who I'm sure you heard it. Don't California my Texas.
Yeah, totally. Or any other state at this point.
It is quite literally the most frustrating saying because it's generated it's rooted in ignorance. Their assumption that everybody in California that moves is going to immediately. Which anytime I ask somebody about that, I was like, "Can you name me a person who did it?" Well, no. Okay, then it doesn't make any sense. When you look at places like Texas and California, Texas has the major metropolitan areas just like California does. They have Austin and Houston, which is extensions of Los Angeles and San Francisco, and so people generalize and put everybody into that same category when I'm like, but wait a minute. You have guys like, like, I don't want to get too political, but like Beto O'Rourke, who was born and raised in El Paso.
Yeah.
And you're going to sit there and say, well, it's because this person. Just yesterday, I had passed by this show, the little excerpt of Glenn Beck. And it was about a school board teacher who had issues about certain things that were being implemented, but she was actually from California. And she was fighting against the board that's been there in Frisco for like 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this misconception that everybody from California is suddenly going to change the culture into another state, that's ultimately why California has also been neglected, because there's this huge misconception that we're just some idiots who are just trying to go and change everything.
Yeah, there are definitely idiots that are, but that's not the majority of the people that are here. Just going back to like the wall being expanded, and I've had said my piece on the show plenty of times, and it's not me jumping up and down and being a little bitch, but look, if you think this stuff is just going to stay here, like, you're wrong. Just ask Oregon, right? Because literally less than a year ago, it was much different up there, and now they're staring down the barrel of laws that are stricter or more, let's just say, more restrictive.
Same thing with Washington.
Than even that's what I was just going to say. And as soon as that's more restrictive than California, and as soon as that stuff started to get going, Washington was close to follow. And these are not, again, like the people that are influencing this are not like the two people, obviously, that are sitting here on the couch. This is coming from somebody that does have an agenda, and we are quietly, but also, I want to say, very visibly fighting the fight. Right. And you have to, and you like, people say, well, you need to go to your congressperson's office, and you need to be talking to your state assemblyman, and your the people. Well, I have to tell you, like, they are not receptive when you're living in these major metropolitan areas. They're just not. I've been closely involved in it. I've had conversations with a couple of organizations that fight these fights, like FPC, or the and FRAC, about the things that they're doing in our states, and they have to be careful about the people that they put in front as like a plaintiff, because of the perception, of putting you or me, like, but look, this guy's got guns all over his page or whatever. Like, this is a target. This is the person that we hate. So, on their end, they have to be smart about it and look at it and go, look, man, we get it. As much as we love you and you currently love us and love what we're trying to do, like, you have to understand the optics of this don't look good. They don't really. That's a hard truth. Yeah, that is a hard truth. So again, going back, like, we're sort of aliens in this, and the fight comes from putting out the good knowledge, trying to bring people together, trying to, again, spread a message that condones, let's come together on this. Yes, there's going to be people out there that are going to make us this a little hard, within our own quote-unquote community, you're going to make this a little harder for us than it probably should be. But your point about, like, the outside perception that people think, like, everybody that lives in California thinks and works and believes in a certain way and is going to somehow influence it or wants to come influence it somewhere else, that is ridiculous. Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate because, again, it's like, why are we neglecting our own? And is it going back to, well, is it just because people want to just make money? Or is it just because, well, it's not my problem, but then now it's starting to bleed over into other states, and you're like, oh, wait, now it's a problem. But wait, that doesn't, it's like when the people who would hit me up for, firearms instruction or how to go about buying a firearm. Oh, now it's a thing? Now you want to worry about it? Like, but wait a minute. But now I don't look like the crazy paranoid prepper guy? Right. What? That doesn't make any sense. I've got the same.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating in the sense that it's like, dude, why are we waiting? It's like, man, I can't begin to tell you what I saw in the last couple of years, because I used to work at Costco, and watching the way the public reacted to certain situations. I'm not worried about this government thing, the COVID, the vaccine, all that, like whatever it may be. I'm worried about how people are going to react during when infrastructure really shuts down, when gas electric shuts down, when Costco shuts down. When I saw people legitimately camping out the night before for toilet paper, I was like, bro, what are we doing?
I'm laughing. So, sorry, I'm laughing about it now, but I was the same way. I was like, what world are we living in right now?
It was the most mind-boggling thing to walk out.
It was a hard thing to look at.
Yeah,
man.
and to walk out the night before, my scheduled shift when it would be about 2:30 to 11 o'clock at night, and we'd see like people legitimately camping out for the morning after. And I was like, wait, what? We're really doing this?
Wait, yeah. So you mentioned something there, like we didn't cover this at the beginning. You were working at Costco during this time, right?
Not only that time, but I worked there for almost 20 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So again, I think very relatable. Yeah. Right? Like this is 20 years, dude. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't do some crazy ninja jump out of a halo? Yeah. Nah, bro. I stocked water and paper, dog. Like, what do you mean? Like, I've had so many people like, what'd you do or what'd you do in the military? I was like, I wasn't in. Yeah. Or what sniper schools? Like, I didn't do any of that. Yeah. I went to Costco and studied and went to school. Like, what? What do you mean that you are a regular person?
Yeah.
And that's the whole relatable. Like, I was fortunate enough, extremely blessed to get put on the cover of Ballistic Magazine. And when I was talking to Sean Utley about it, and I was like, well, why? He's like, because people gravitate towards you because you're not, the cool high-speed ninja guy, and you appease to like 90% of the people who aren't that, which is the rest of the public. Mm-hmm. So they're able to like gravitate towards you in a sense where it's like, oh, so he can learn too?
He's normal.
Yeah, like he's he didn't do all this, he didn't have like black squares and fuzzy faces and gray tones. And I'm like, no, man, like that's not what I did. Like I worked at Costco and I just kept shooting.
I think there's, again, going back, like when you go to these events or classes, and I'll talk about the instructors here in California, and how they interact. But when you go there, that's what you run into. Mm-hmm. You're not running into a bunch of, high speed, ex-military guys that are all training. And so I think that's one of the other things that why the culture is as strong as it is and it continues to grow is because if you can get past, like if somebody can bring you into it, bring you into the fold, look, man, just come. Like and a lot of times that entry is like, well, you should reach out to Amir. He likes to just give basic information, man. Or, he could give you this information. He could take you out down the range. He could coach you up. Or, your buddy or your brother or whatever else who trains regularly, go, hey, the next step for you is to maybe get into a more formalized class where I'm not teaching you, somebody else is. And I think some of the bigger takeaways from that, at least they are for me when I go to these classes, are meeting and studying the characters and the people that are in the class. Yeah. And knowing where they came from and why they're there. And 90% of the time, it's dudes like you or me. Yeah. Like, this is not our job. We do not make a living doing this. We're not fucking weirdos. Yeah. We're out there because we enjoy doing it. Yeah. We like the learning process. We like making new friends. We like doing fun things. I like being outside and training. And yes, there's a piece of this where I just want to make sure that I'm as skilled as I possibly can be in case people get, when the shit gets weird. Yeah. And, for people to go, like, what do you mean weird? I'm not talking about like the apocalypse. Yeah. We're talking about fucking toilet paper. Yeah. Like, that's how weird it got.
Yeah. To watch that and to watch how people reacted toward, that's what made me, I was like, wow. Where am I?
That was my whole thing. Like, I was sitting inside my storefront with the door locked when the riots were happening in June of 2020. And I was like, what is happening right now? And I was very quickly reminded, this isn't anything new. Mm-hmm. This is the same thing that happened on April 29th, 1992. I was there. I remember that happening when I was a kid. I was in high school. I was watching this shit happen on TV. And then the story goes is like, I live in a very pretty, like, I don't want to say, let's just say it was like suburbs. And so there was no rioting in 1992 where we were, but people were heated and it was weird. And I remember I'd come home from school. My parents were like, let's go out. We're going to grab some food at one of the local restaurants, one of these big chain restaurants where we walk up to the door and they're closing the restaurant up. It's like, 5:30 at night. And we're like, what the fuck's going on? Like, we're closing because of, corporate has asked us to close down based on what's going on. We're like, what? Yeah. Like, and we knew it was happening, but never put the things together. And then we went home, you continue to watch the TV over the next 3 or 4 days to see all the things that kind of unfolded there. My point of this is this is human behavior. Mm-hmm. This is not weird, right? Like, this is like, so when you see what happened, I shouldn't be shocked. Yeah. I should be prepared for this. Like, this is what people do when they get scared. This is what people do when they are unprepared.
Yeah.
They freak the fuck out and they do weird shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person.
Exactly.
I want to be an asset, not a liability to the people around me. I don't want to be freaking out about it.
It was weird, man.
But I also understand that I have assets, right? That these people that are not prepared may need. And I just don't want to be in a situation where I can't protect my assets.
Yeah, and that's the, like, dude, it was crazy to watch how easily people are influenced. Like when their lines were crazy out the door. I remember asking a few people, I was like, hey man, why are you buying all this toilet paper? Just curious. I kid you not, dude. This is literally their response.
I can't wait.
It was just, well, you know, we saw it on the internet and our friends had recommended, and I was like, recommended what? And I'm like, in the back of my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, seriously? And they're like, yeah, we heard it was going to be kind of an issue. And I was like, what's the issue? It's always vague and general statements. And I'm like, but what is the problem? I don't. So watching that in itself is to watch, not only it was interesting to see how ill-prepared and misinformed and how naive people really are. And they can be influenced at it. And it goes back to like when I was saying with like the States, it's not a matter of people moving into the States. It's because anybody can be influenced anywhere at any given time via social media.
And no state is immune from this.
Absolutely.
Right. So it was California just seemed wacky because we live in California. So that kind of covers what you were doing. You're doing something different now.
Yes, I work in aerospace now. Okay. It was funny because like I was actually trying to get into medicine for so long, got rejected 3 years in a row. It was like ridiculous. Like
that's a tough road, man.
Yeah, $2,500 to $3,000 a month, or not a month, but a year just for applications for the same regurgitated dude. I'm not gonna lie, I was in a real bad low when I got my got my last rejection letter in my third year. It sucked, man, because you put a lot of emphasis, you put a lot into it, and then just to get that. So it took a while to really kind of get myself out of that real, and I'm sure everybody's been in that shitty hole before.
Again, it's very relatable.
Yeah, everybody's been in that shit. It sucked. And then also watching my pops, you know, with him and his ailments and all that stuff like that, it burned me out. You know, but with the new gig and then the scheduling that I have, you know, it's super nice because now I can focus on the all eyes thing and be able to really push this whole idea of like the training aspect. It's often like the new word, I don't know if you've noticed, like the new like buzzword now is like capability. What's your capability? You know, we always have every couple years.
I've noticed.
Yeah, it's always been like some kind of dynamic, kinetic, you know.
Tactical's gone.
Yeah, it's all that. I'm like, dude, why so many words? So now it's capability. Like, oh, you got this 4-wheel drive truck. Oh, you got this dirt bike, night vision, helmets. And I'm like, cool. Well, if you got this 4-wheel drive, you know what lockers are? You know what an electronic locker versus an air locker is? Sure. You know, stuff like that. But just, no, I got this 4-wheel drive truck, a dirt bike, night vision. I'm set to go. Yeah. But I was like, do you realize that like part of your peripheral vision now is gone if you're running dual tubes, or if you're getting super bougie, you're running panos? Yeah. Still not full 360. Yeah. You know, so it's just one of those things where people will dive into it and will say it's about preparation, when in reality it's like, no, man, again,
you made a very misinformed decision there.
Yeah, you're trying to push a gimmick. Again, I have no problem with people buying night vision helmets. I want people to do that. But to also understand the training implementation behind it, understanding how to get into it, what to do, what are you trying to do? Especially with like, you know, when I ask people now talk about like homesteading, like, oh, okay, I just want to prepare and have food. And then you'll ask a lot of people like, hey, dude, do you guys have like antibiotics? No. What? So when you get that cut and then your shit gets infected, what's gonna happen? Are you just gonna throw some Tito's?
Throw some dirt on it.
Yeah, and just be good. It's like, dude, come on. Things like that, like the medical aspects, you know, stuff like that. And I think people, again, they get caught up in this whatever new trend is happening.
Sexy.
Yeah, again, it's super awesome on the videos.
I mean, it's very romantic to think about having your own farm and, you know, being fully sustainable.
I want to. I would love to.
I would love to, but I also understand the realities of that. Yeah. Like, first off, that's a hard life. Yeah. And number two, like what you get, you also give up. Yeah. Right on the other end, go back to the antibiotics. It seems such a. It's the same. I guess a simple analogy would be like, you train to shoot guns, but you don't train to plug holes. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like you don't equal that on the medical side, which for me right up front was like a huge thing. Like, I'm more worried about getting hurt, not hurting somebody else, right? Or have my family member get hurt. I need a refresher. I actually used to be an instructor for the Red Cross. It's in a past life. Interesting. So I had a lot of that under my belt. I used to teach classes for them for a while and do it at work, but they would ask me to teach other classes. So even then I was like, I need to go refresh. Like I need to see, because what we were teaching then would be like more for like what you would expect like in a household accident or like a car accident or something like that. Trauma is trauma. Yeah. But when you start talking about violence, right? And things that, could be perpetrated. Again, things we were seeing on TV and things we see on TV and on body, cam footage and CCTV footage and all that all day long, every day now, because it's being put out there. These are not your bumps and bruises. We're not talking about heart attacks and strokes and heat stroke and things like that. We're talking about shit. So the point of that is like capability, capability. Okay, that's a very broad term. That means it's very broad but not very deep.
To me, capability is based on your willingness to learn.
I think it's the best.
It's the capability. Oftentimes, everybody's just like, it's always synonymous with what you own. Stop.
Yeah.
And again, for the love of God, do not think that I think it's bad that you own this.
Yeah.
But you need to understand, what do you know as far as what this night vision thing is? There's people putting out good info about it, but oftentimes it's like, what's getting that viewmanship is the whole, like, what's sexy at that time. But again, go learn.
And there are people that are completely dedicated to, you can call them like an SME on this stuff.
Yeah.
That's all they do because they love it that much, right? And that's where they spend the entirety of their time on social media or wherever else in terms of putting out information, where they do it. And the information's free, right? You don't have to, fly across the country to get into like a green light tactical type thing, or meet with Sam Houston over in, I think he's in North Carolina or whatever. I think those guys are out there or whatever. You don't have to go there. Like they do some really great events. And they do travel around the country. So if you have the opportunity to do that, but you don't have to go there to know that. It's just like, well, but if what you're doing is like, well, if this guy has it, then I should have it. If that's your comparison model, or that's what's helping you make your buying decision, that we could go down a huge rabbit hole there. I don't want to do that. But I mean, you brought up the night vision thing, and that's like, I still don't have it. And there's reasons why.
Yeah.
Some of it is finance. And the other part of it is like, I still don't. And I know some really great people that I can reach out and call and go, dude, tell me what to get. And I would trust them implicitly. But that's what that is farming out my journey in terms of getting knowledge, right? Like that's why I sit down with guys like you. Is like, I want to know everything there is to know about you or the things that you do. And so like, that just gives me that much more baseline for making decisions, going on the path. So that's another huge reason why I haven't got into that. Again, finance, but also I don't have a full enough understanding, but part of the reason I don't have a full enough understanding is because I haven't dedicated the time, the energy into doing that. And it's not that I don't want to, it just isn't on the priority list right now. Now people can go, well, that's a bad call, dude, because bad shit happens after dark.
And it's like, dude, but like,
I get it.
It's so frustrating people say that.
What could I be doing? There are other things that make me capable, all right, going back, with white lights, and things like that. Or just situational awareness and not putting myself in situations to do that. Now, if there comes a time where I have, like night vision means the difference between life or death, and then I don't have it, I guess I'm going to die. But the probability of that happening is so low.
Extremely low.
That's not how I'm choosing to spend my time. I'm doing and my finance and my again in the time of my journey, I'm doing it differently.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I like about how you put out the information, is that it's wherever you are in the space, like and wherever you are in your journey, it's still very relevant. And so we brought up the Costco thing. Now you're in the aerospace thing, which is obviously much different. But the point of that is I think people relate to that, particularly here in California. It's like, look, I have a job. I want to train. I have limitations on where I can train. I have time limitations. So I have to drive 3 hours to get someplace where I can be in the desert with my hatchback open and my gear on and do it. And so when I get there, I want to be planned. Again, this is all very relatable stuff. Coming all the way back to the instruction piece and talking about the instructors that exist here in California, I wonder how you feel about this, because what I hear you saying is what I see a lot of the best ones doing. So like going back, like you brought up Mark, Ackbeck, love Mark. The information he puts out is outstanding. And California is a big place, right? It's big. So like Southern California and Northern California, I mean, with regard to where this training is happening, in the bulk of the training in those two regions is a minimum 360 to 460 miles apart. Right? That's a big gap, right? It's not like you're getting in the car, driving a couple hours training and coming back.
It's tough.
It's a commitment. So what I'm starting to see, and what we've been seeing for a long time, hats off to guys like you. And again, let's go back to California Range Weekend. You brought up Kyle Manzano Tactical. You brought up Mark. Now those guys are at opposite ends of the map. So, for lack of a better term, and they're getting together to train together as instructors.
Yeah.
And they're bringing in the Northern California community to the Southern California community and vice versa. There's this cross-pollination.
Yeah.
CRW very, very specifically has been about making it very California-centric. And now I think they're getting demands from, what I mean is like a drive from other people to come in from us. I want to be a part of this. Yeah. So like I mentioned, I'm not going to drop, this is for Tony and his crew to do, but I have some inside information on a couple of instructors that are coming out that I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Because these guys are coming out and they have influence all over the country and obviously their region, and they're going to be able to bring that cross-pollination. And that's what I see you doing here in California is you're trying to cross-pollinate all the different communities. Yeah. You're leaving no stone unturned, but you're also not discriminating or pushing anybody out. So it is very...
Everybody's got
very California word. It's very inclusive.
All day. And everybody's got something to give and something to take. And doesn't matter. Like, I really believe it's, especially like in the precision rifle community, there's oftentimes people will say like, oh, well, snipers should be the only ones teaching precision rifle. But I was like, have you ever heard of guys like Todd Hotnet, Jacob Bynum, and Brian Litz? Like, these guys aren't Leo Mill, but these guys, they consider them sniper Jesuses.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
Yeah.
But like, and it's just like, do you not see like the benefit of what outside can be or what you can learn from the outside? Because like for us, with the average shooter, the civilian shooter, if you will, we have access to a lot more than some of the military units just because they have a specific set of circumstances and rules. Us, we have the ability to do, they don't have to go through we don't have to go through like procurement processes, testing, all this stuff. We just go and shoot and try things and on our leisure, and to be able to do that is something that a lot of people tend to not see. And I think, with me trying to instruct as well, that's a part of it. But like what I want more of is like, hey guys, let's teach in California too. Like there's people in Cali that really want to learn.
Yeah, the perspective you mentioned, like snipers should be the only one teaching precision rifle. There's so many other applications to precision rifle than shooting a human being. Yeah. Right. And like to your point, like just because that's not how you make a living or made a living for a while and shooting other human beings, in time of war, GWAT stuff, whatever else, there's hunters out there that use this stuff. By the way, there's matches that you can shoot. There's just going out and having fucking fun. Yeah. Right. And like golf. Yeah. Like why play golf? What utility is there in golf? I don't think there's a lot of utility in that game at all. Yeah. But what I do know it does is it gets people outside.
And people's enjoyment.
They fucking enjoy it, right? And so it's their outlet, right? It's their escape from work or the things in life that can weigh down on them or whatever. They get to switch off for a while. Yeah. And here's the thing, like go try and play golf with like something on your mind outside of that little ball. Yeah. You're gonna have a horrible day on the course. Yeah. Like you have to get focused. Yeah. It's the same with shooting. Like it's kind of like you put on the gear or you grab the gun. You have to put yourself in a different state of mind in order to be successful, right? Whatever you're doing, whether it's shooting at 3 yards or shooting at 300 yards, right? There are these skill sets that have to be put together, and the fundamentals all come together, just like golf or anything else. And so, why does it have to be a former, Navy SEAL sniper, or Army sniper to be teaching this stuff? It doesn't. And I think what we're seeing is because the civilians like you and others, Mark, as an example, have the access, right? Yeah. And they do have this flexibility to train on all these things. What you're seeing is a very, very skilled coach that doesn't have that type of background, be able to teach this stuff just as well or better because they've had this accessibility and flexibility to learn things differently and make more mistakes and also spread their wings a little bit more into other areas to pull on these bits of knowledge rather than being inside this very strict framework or, as you mentioned, they're not handcuffed with policies or procedures or this is the only equipment
because you're providing a good service at this point. You're not providing a service to people who are getting paid. You're actually like, all right, there's a set of customer service that you have to kind of really fulfill as well. You can be the best shooter on the planet, but you have shitty customer service. No one's going to go back to you. Right. It's just what it is. Mark does a real good job of that. And a lot of other people that I've come across do a really good job of that because that whole relatable aspect. People, all right, cool. The walls can kind of go down a little bit. I don't have to be. And that's the other thing too, like when it comes to Leo Mill and the civilian side, it's like, why are we always in competition all the time?
It's weird.
I get it, man. There are certain things that the civilian side has no business talking about. And then there's also things that Leo Mill guys will do that they don't get it. Mm-hmm. You know, just because you did, you know, I don't have this really background, but if I understand it correctly, like a breacher, that guy has no place talking about precision rifle. But
I got you from a skill sets.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, dude, we all have something to kind of give.
Right.
So why don't we just do that? Yeah. You know, but unfortunately, ego, social media, clout, engagement, views, that, no, even though they try to say it's not the case, it is the case. And it's hard for a lot of people to really just say, hey, you know what? Let's just squash that. And because people look at that as being kind of odd. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not pissed off and angry about it? Like, no. It's like going back to what I was saying about like these big name dudes that I don't really care or follow for. I was like, well, because I don't learn anything from them. I don't hate them or think they're bad people.
There's not a lot of value there.
I just don't really care for it, man. But the fact that I have to follow a specific crowd, whatever crowd may be, is like, dude, I'm not about that shit. It's not me. It's not who I am. Mm-hmm. This is why I pride myself off of being that guy who's just kind of like, all right, man, cool, whatever. Just do your thing.
Yeah, that's very refreshing.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
It's very refreshing, and it's, to me, it seems like such an easier life to live on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, because you have, well, I mean, and I'm also plagued with like things that are going on in my life. So the last thing I want to do is bicker over dog shit on the internet. And you're just like, it's like people are still arguing over like 9 versus 45.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus, guys, really?
Yeah. the thing is, like you chose shooting as the outlet, not the drama that exists within the shooting community, right? So if you went back to that every time, it's just the shooting thing. Like this other noise really matters to me because that's my outlet. Where some people, I think, getting involved in the drama is the outlet. It makes them feel better about how, let's just say, unkept their own house is, right? Or, you know, the realities that are going on there. And it's not to be disparaging to anybody that is dealing with things. But, there's not a lot of self-examination there when they get into the drama. And it's just really easy to discount, you know, whatever is going on at the moment and get into this thing. But it doesn't make a lot of sense either because you're just onboarding all that bad juju. And I don't think it's very productive. It can be once you finally realize how dumb that is, and then refocus and go, I'm never going back there. It's like, it's been described, you know, on the show before, it was like having like finally finding a girlfriend where you're like, and recognizing that the old girlfriend you had was toxic and is mean and just that relationship was as unhealthy as it ever could have. But
unhealthy mental state.
But you don't know until you get to the other side. You don't know what you don't know. So next question, I guess, would be, where does this go from here for you? So like you are very consistent with the content. There's all kinds of stuff that's coming out on a regular basis. You stay on top of it while, you know, having another job.
I'm glad you see it. I'm glad people see it because I feel like oftentimes it doesn't because I don't fall into that category of being edgy and sexy. I'm like, but no. But like I said, I realize that people who really are into it will watch it.
Yeah, I think people that also recognize that they have maybe gotten tired of the other stuff.
You're right.
The other thing is like, I think that the tougher part is like getting you, guys like you, in front of the newcomer, right, to the scene. So it's like you really gotta. It really is up to those people. Again, the other instructors and things like that. That when I say other, I just mean instructors in general to share other people's stuff. And going back to the staying away from the negative. Yeah. Let's prop people up, man. Again, I've used it. We've talked about it a little bit. Like again, the safety manipulation video, really great fucking video.
Thank you.
Like. And, you know, you spent time putting it out there. It's really good stuff. Yeah. You posting as another instructor, Amir stuff on your page should not take anything away from what you're doing. Yeah. Right? Because if you're that person, you think, well, I don't want to post this because maybe then they'll go to Amir, they'll stop following me. Yeah. You got bigger problems, man. If that's what you think. But going back, like I think it could be leveraged. Like we could be building our community a little bit better just by propping people up and go, hey, check out this. I thought this was a really great explanation of this, and just put it out there. Even if that person doesn't know you, we could be doing that more, and we don't because we think we're risking something. I just say we being the collective we. So, like, I see you putting this stuff out all the time. I see it being shared. I know the circles within the circles to a certain extent, particularly here in California. I don't know anybody that doesn't like you, you know. So I think that there's something to be said there, right? And that's not to say that everybody agrees with everything that you say or that you agree with everything that they say. But I've never heard anybody talking shit. And I think that's likely because you're not out there talking shit.
Yeah.
But the question is like, where do you go from here? Like, what are you trying to do next? I mean, the new career thing, getting settled there is that's a lot. So, in building the community and where it's come over the last couple of years, where does it go from here?
Yeah. For me, the biggest focus is to build that community even more. That to me is what it is. That's where the instruction comes into play. Really try to bridge that gap. Again, I never thought I was going to be doing this in the first place, which is what's weird. But that's ultimately what I want to do. I want to spend more time on really helping the community out as much as I can, just as much as that positive part of the community helped me.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, again, we dive into that whole like, well, the negative this. And I'm like, dude, if we just focus on the good, positive stuff, and I get it, it's not going to be all kumbaya and we all sing around in happy days, because that's not real world, unfortunately. But I'd like to do my best to really, really try to get good instruction and help people out as much as I can, really point them in a direction to where I can help them build that foundation, and then they can flourish.
You can move to the next level.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. Because I'll have a lot of people, man, I want to do CQB tax. I saw you doing stuff with core vision. I was like, yeah, but that was after deliberate a metric ton of training that I did, prior to it. That's not something where you just jump straight into it. I'm a huge fan of that whole like crawl, walk, run idea. And people see, but again, it's that sex factor that, shit, you get to do that, night vision and teams and whatever. It's like, no, but that's not what I took out of it. I took more out of that. So for me, ultimately, is to focus on really trying to properly build and create a better group of responsible firearm owners, because there's obviously always a lot of negative attention towards like firearms owners in general, especially in the state of California. And people always like, oh, you're just waiting to shoot something. No, I'm not. Like, what are you talking about, man? So that's ultimately what the whole all eyes thing. I really want everybody to be a part of it. You know what I mean? And it sounds somewhat cliche, but truthfully, man, like I really mean it, because it's done a whole lot for me. I've had an incredible opportunity to be part of some legit companies, get put out there, and people asking me for, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? It's pretty incredible. Like, and in me, talking to dudes who have like the cool like ninja background, but they're asking me for stuff, and I'm asking them for stuff like that. I want to share that more. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's what I love so much. Dudes that I never thought, like, dude, and you, like, I would have never thought I'd be on this.
Here we are.
Yeah. And then, hey, what's up, bro? Like, it's cool. So I think ultimately that's where I really want to take that. And people are just like, man, there's a lot of stressors that are involved. If you make it stressful, I mean, if you want to make it stressful, that's cool. But like for me, it's like, all right, cool, we'll just take it as we go. Because people keep asking, when are you gonna do classes? I was like, there's a lot of things that I need to figure out first, as far as like, semantics and all that type of stuff. And, certain places need certain certifications, and, I got to get the insurance and all that type of stuff. Because there's a lot that goes into not just going to instruct, and a lot of people don't realize that.
No, they don't.
Yeah, like there's a lot of things like you got to get insurance in case somebody accidentally hurts himself, which, it's unlikely, but still, can it happen? Yes.
These are the realities of owning a business. Anyways, man, I don't care if you're a shooting instructor or not. There's the things that really come up for me in what you said there are, one is just giving back. Giving back because you've gotten so much. Yeah. Right? And also giving back in a way that puts people in a position where they can continue to, you use the word flourish in whatever ways that they want to. So being able to introduce them to different things. And I think this comes, something that came to mind earlier as you were talking about all the different things you do, shooting carbine, shooting pistols, shooting, PRS. Being able to introduce people to that, right? Not, and again, when I look at this, a lot of people are like, no, I just do pistol, or I just do, people are just training people for USPSA now, and competitions like that. That's great if you want to specialize like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but you are limiting your market segment in terms of who can come to you and what they're going to come to you for. And if that's where you want to focus, because that makes it easier for you to, or you feel like you can be more streamlined with your marketing and your instruction, and you don't want to get too far outside of your quote unquote lane or whatever else, dude, do that. I've done that even at times in my own business, my own business journey. But being able to expose people to all the different things allows them to choose their own pathway in a different kind of way. And I think that's where, in a world of specialization of everything, you giving back and also giving back kind of all the things rather than I'm picking this one thing is very helpful because it allows, again, it opens up all the market segments for an entry point into, I'm going to try this, right? And usually when they try one thing, they'll want to try something else. At least that's been my journey. Like I was very, very specific. There were certain things I needed, or I felt like I needed to get out. There was urgency to this. Like I am not well prepared here. There are things I need to do, and along getting prepared and doing those things, there was going to be some serious financial investment in, okay, I have one pistol I could probably do, but in finding out like this is probably not the best situation for me. I didn't need the $8,000 pistol, like competition pistol, or that's an exaggeration. Let's call it $5,000 pistol. I knew what I needed. I wanted a Glock. I got a Glock. I didn't have one. So it's like, that's what it is. So I made a $600 investment, right? And then kind of went from there. And then on the rifle side of things, my point of that is like, I had to pick and choose wisely and make my investments wisely. And if I'm being limited because of, let's say, geographics or whatever else, to where this guy teaches this one thing, then I automatically almost get drawn or pigeonholed into that, and I don't get that exposure. And these other instructors that sort of some of the ones that you brought up and some of the ones that we haven't brought up, they do a really good job of giving people exposure to the different things that are out there without trying to do too much. And so when you're creating your business, around this, you have to be really careful about what you pick first, right? And what you're going to put out there and how you're going to do it, on top of all the last thing that you said there is this, I just want to make sure that when I do this, everything is set up correctly to provide the best customer experience, and provide that service and give them everything that they're signing up for me for, because I get from you that you respect that people trust you. And again, I haven't heard anybody say an ill word. And I talked to a lot of people. And
it's good to hear.
I mean, the cameras go off sometimes and the headsets get put down and, whatever. And sometimes people are, some conversation will happen. I'm like, dude, I heard some stuff. Like people will tell me some things about some people that, like, again, whether it's their business to be telling me or not, let's just say I hear stuff. And again, I think people trust you. They see you as very relatable. You've been told that before. I think you add an interesting piece to the culture that isn't necessarily being talked about a lot, again, which is this, let's bring the community together in a little bit of a different way. I see you at the events, like when you are truly an ambassador in that sense. Like when there's a California range event, or even like you mentioned SHOT Show or something, like you're there. Right. You're shaking hands, you're talking to people, you're participating. But more importantly, you're contributing.
The biggest thing too is like being able to take constructive criticism. I've noticed one big thing in this community is that people are not really too keen on that. They always think it's like an attack.
It's an ego.
It's just like, no, man, look at it. I've been criticized on certain things, like from a buddy of mine, Tyler, like on his podcast, they had a video of me doing like the check drill. And it was just me, check drill is like, all right, cool. Rifle goes dry, go to your pistol, reload your pistol, same thing with rifle, and then go from there. But it was the last shot, and he was like, what's the purpose of this? I was like, because it tests not only if I'm consistent, but it's just because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's good to be able to do it. He's like, okay, cool. But the tactics, I was like, but this is what we need to understand, is that tactics are one thing. Like the performance, mechanics, whatever word you want to label it as, is also something as well. And that's what I'm trying to focus on, because I'll get people telling me about like, well, tactically this is, I was like, but again,
you've just taken this 3 steps further.
This is not what I'm trying. That's not the intention. And I keep saying that. And like, that's where I always focus on saying, hey, like, well, you go to this person if you want to learn tactics, whatever. So I think, and then oftentimes when it comes to this constructive criticism, like what I was talking about before, where you have those people who kind of like circle jerk each other, talk crap about that, whatever they don't like. They seem to only fixate on that because, again, it creates that engagement, but aren't really, like, you're inhibiting, like, the process of learning.
So now what? Now what
okay, cool. You say it's this way. It's this how you're supposed to do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what about this way? Like certain things I'll do like how to clear a bolt override double feed. I kind of subscribe to the way Mike Pannone does it. And people be like, well, you're putting your thing in the dirt, you're going to blow up in your face. All right, man, but this guy says clearly it's kind of worked for him, but there's other ways of doing it. And I explicitly say there are other ways of doing it. People will still fight and be like, no, this is going to get you. I'm like, but you're not
getting lost in the sauce.
Yeah, man. And you do your best to really try to like put people in a correct direction, but people always want to be super argumentative. Don't really know how to take the constructive criticism because it's like, in a sense that where it doesn't help you adapt and it doesn't help you learn.
I think what I take away, and again, this is a very refreshing conversation to have, is that there's two things that I think the industry stands to gain a lot from, and I wish we could see more of it. And I've said some of this before. I see a lot of juvenile decision-making, and I see a lot of juvenile behavior.
Right.
What you just explained and how you have to, you're going to have to deal with this stuff. So you're trying to do your best with the right intention and also laying the foundation and the grounds for that in the post somehow, right? Whether you're saying it, showing it, writing it in the caption or whatever, it takes a great deal of a couple things. One, it takes a great deal of patience to deal with that. And handling people with kid gloves when you can see them going down that route. And the second thing it takes in order to not end up in the same state that they're in, whether it's this egotistical state or whatever else, is a good deal of emotional maturity. And so going back to the word juvenile, again, when we talk about patience and talk about emotional maturity, if there's a space, right, in the world that has the toughest time with those things, it is the firearm space. And it is exhausting, right? And look, I like a dick and fart joke just as much as anybody else, right? And by the way, I'm just a dude. Yeah, man. And my buttons get pushed too. But until people start checking other people, and I think they get checked when you just don't engage. Yeah. Just don't give oxygen to this shit. The more oxygen you give to that, then the more they circle jerk one another, and the more you're going to have these discussions, being publicized and whatever else. Yeah. And that thing goes on. I just like there's a saying it without saying it is basically, hey man, like just leave it alone. Yeah. Let it go. Like this is what I try to explain. Yeah. I get where you're coming from. Have a nice day. That conversation gets oftentimes very, very lost in the comments section.
Because I have to be right. Yeah. I'm the one that I need to have the last word. It's like, no. Okay, cool. Have a nice day. Hey. I'm not going to sit there and stress.
You're not emotionally invested in it that way.
Yeah, and then, dude, I'm not going to lie. Like, I almost fell down that rabbit hole, and it was hard. It was hard not to get really angry.
Especially on a bad day, right? Yeah. Which we all have. Yeah.
Dude, and it's just you get super invested into it, and I'm like, well, why? Why am I arguing with this person when clearly this is not the case? But oftentimes people are just simply trying to push certain buttons just to simply feel like they're a part. Because that's what, unfortunately, social media has kind of created is this idea of, well, if I comment on something, I'm a part of the conversation. It's like you'll see a lot of that, or, these models on Instagram where dudes will just sit there and comment on them, but then they'll respond. The girl will respond back and they'll be like, oh, they responded. But it's like, no, they're responding to create their engagement. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing on the guys in the firearms industry. They just want the engagement. Is there really good info? Absolutely. But oftentimes it gets lost in that void. Yeah. And you're trying to really make a concerted effort. And it's tough, man, because oftentimes I was just like, dude, I want to delete my accounts. I don't want to be a part of any of this. I was going to be like, hey guys, here's all your stuff. I don't really care for this anymore. Because it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Burned out, man. And, and it's also refreshing to see guys like Joe Dawson, seeing him and seeing his background and him doing what he's doing. He's probably one of the few people who are also putting out and sharing the positive people that are in this industry as well. And that's one of those things where I appreciate, I gravitate. That's why I follow him and watch what he does, because again, I'm learning from you. And I'm not going to listen to you if I can't learn from you.
Right.
And I think ultimately people are just kind of like, well, what do you mean? Like, how dare you not be able to have it this way? Why aren't you feeling the same way I am? I don't know, man. You ask yourself that.
Yeah. Yeah. That should be answered by the person asking the question first.
Exactly.
Because if you can't answer that question for yourself, then you should be asking somebody else. Yeah, I mean, it's no secret I love Joe and how he does it. And he'll be the first to tell you he's got an ego. He's just not going to protect it because he doesn't feel he has to. Like, he's just going to be him. Yeah. And again, that's the refreshing piece, is the making the commitment to being you and not compromising that. Yeah. And also knowing that you may not be for everybody. Yeah. So people listen to this be like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm just not into it. Yeah. Is that going to bother, Amir? I don't think it will.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's not a human on the planet that doesn't want other people to like them.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, you're not going to be offended by that and be pissed off about it and post a social media comment about how somebody else doesn't know what they're talking about just because they don't agree or like you. The intention is important, and bringing value to the table, it should be the intention. If the mission is what your mission is, which is bringing the community together. Outside of that, like, I think with people coming into this and looking at it and kind of trying to take away, like, yeah, but this guy has to have an agenda, right? Like you just mentioned, like, I thought about giving it up, giving all the stuff back. The stuff back means, like, okay, yeah, some companies have probably sent you some products, right, for you to use and demonstrate with and whatever. But if you look at your page, it's not an advertisement for all these products.
Will I tag them? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to be clear about this. Like, look, this is what makes the world go round. Yeah. Right? And this is, are there things to be gained by that company by giving you products? 1,000%. Are there things for you to gain by being involved? Yes. And that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely zero wrong with that, as long as the intention and the relationship that you've created there is done with a good understanding of what this is and what this isn't. And yeah, so I like people like, oh, he's just, you know, he's using that gun because he's sponsored by him. What the fuck? Why does that matter? Yeah. Like, if that's what you see when you pull up the thing, right? When you see the thing going on, then you're already digging. And if you dig deep enough on anybody, you're going to find out shit you don't like. I don't care who you are.
Absolutely.
Right? But if what you're listening to is the content and the intention behind that content or whatever it is, I think that's where people could spend a little bit more time. And again, I've used the word refreshing about 100 times now, because it is that when I see that, I really get, like, and again, the bullshit sniffer is pretty good on my end. Like, I get that if you were getting paid $1 million, you'd be saying, by these companies, you'd be saying a lot about a lot of different things than what you're probably saying. And that's important, I think, for people to see. And I think those people that have been around this long enough know exactly what I'm talking about.
And people will get lost in that, in that idea of, like, what's genuine, what's disingenuous. And I think, you know, how many times have we heard the term Glock killer? Yeah. Like, we've heard that. So you'll notice, like, a little while back, there was this kind of rift between, like, things like, one of the companies I'm with is Safariland. And, like, you know, there's also Black Hawk and Alien Gear. Yeah. So people started to jump onto those things, which is cool because, honestly, you know, competition drives the innovation. Absolutely.
Love that part. Yep.
But you heard so many people like, oh man, this is gonna get rid of Safariland. This is the Safariland killer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, but how many times have we heard that? How many times have we heard Glock killer? Oh, this new gun that comes out is gonna destroy it. Hey man, if you want to try new things, by all means, go ahead. Yep. But when you go in the intention of saying, I'm going to destroy this company, that's not only disingenuous, but it shows the lack of knowledge that you actually have. And all you're trying to do is promote and sell. That's all you're about now. You're not about actually putting out good info, you know? And I think ultimately that's, again, what people get lost into. And, you know, hey man, there's nothing wrong with any of the other companies that I mentioned by any stretch of the imagination. But don't go into it based on, I want to, because, you know, a lot of people, especially in the firearms community, are in it simply just to expand their social media reach. We've seen that plenty of times. People are not really in the Second Amendment, really in the firearms. And it's funny because I just got an email not too long ago from a company called C4 Fab. They do, like, off-roading stuff. So, like, I'm into the off-roading scene. I got a 4Runner and all this type of stuff. But the whole, like, overlanding thing, it's like becoming this new hotness. And there's a lot of people that I noticed from the firearms community jumping into that and now are subject matter experts in off-roading and overlanding. Okay. But yet I've yet to hear anybody talk about, like, a lot of these guys don't talk about lockers, don't talk about travel, all this type of stuff. It's whatever's given to them for free at the time, you know, and they're not into it because they actually enjoy off-roading or overlanding or whatever you want to call it.
It looks sexy.
You know, but it's cool. At least now I get to make this 20-minute video of me vlogging, you know, of what I'm doing. Right. Cool, man, that's great. But again, you're not in it because you genuinely appreciate it. And it's the same thing with the gaming community, same thing with the fitness community. I have a buddy of mine who's in fitness. So he was telling me the exact same thing.
That's the same thing.
Yeah. You know, there's people that are in it. They, you know, they can look good in yoga pants, or dudes look good in, like, in tank tops or whatever, but are not really into fitness. You know, they're just trying to push something, you know? So that I think ultimately what ends up happening is that just people are in it because, unfortunately, social media, and they just want to expand that reach.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting part about what you're doing and how you're building this thing. You're building it from, like, the long play,
Yeah.
Right. And it's been a longer journey. It hasn't been, it hasn't gone from, I have an Instagram page to I'm an expert instructor to company X throw money and product at me to now sign up for my classes because here I am God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I say, goes. And I happen to have relationships or somebody else signed off on me, who has this ultimate following or Uber following or whatever else. It's this longer play to test the water, to understand where you are with it first, right? To hone your own skills, to understand everything from the social media game to the firearms, right? To the training, to the business, to making sure you're positioning yourself correctly. And you did that in a smart way with like, I know I have to make an income in order to pay my bills and make a living and do these other things. So I have this other thing. And so there has to be a balance to this. And if you're doing that road to build this thing before you can maybe jump into it or make it more of a full-time or more than part-time or whatever it happens to be, it's going to take longer because you're being stretched. I think a lot of this stuff gets compromised when people are just trying to like, I can do this and they try to jump in really quickly and then they end up making mistakes or saying things that, it's hard to walk back on or let's just say clean up along the way or, wanting your ducks in a row, right? And to be in a good place while at the same time doing things where you don't get the benefit of the revenue and all that stuff up front. That's the give, and the giving back to the community without taking that. I think that's a lesson that I think people could probably take a lot.
If your intention is specifically to make money, you're in it for the wrong intention.
Yeah, man.
It's just what it is, and I think ultimately that's what a lot of people get they get sucked into is that and it's like cool. Hey man, there's nothing wrong with making money. But do not make that your only thing, and it's always, especially with the instruction, it was like, I got to do instruction. And now everybody's a precision rifle instructor. I'm like, wait a minute, where do all these guys come from? Like, so, and it's just kind of one of those things. And I'm like, dude, just take it bit by bit. But, it just happens to be trendy at the moment. So let's make some quick bucks.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's like I have people reach out to me, quite frequently with regard to coming on the show. And some people I know a little bit and some people I have no idea who they are. And for me, I always try to be very polite and go, and especially if I don't know, I'm like, hey man, I'm flattered, that you'd like to be on the show or whatever. And, here's where the calendar is at this point. Let's maybe connect on this at another time. Maybe we can make this happen down the road because maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know, but I always go with the maybe we can as an option.
That's
it's never.
professional.
It's almost never. There's been maybe one or two times where like, no, that ain't gonna happen. But that would have been somebody that I already know, right? Or somebody like I get on their page and go, we're not aligned at all. Like this is weird. Like clearly have an agenda. But what I like to do is kind of see what people are doing, like and how they're doing it. There's one particular person who's reached out to me who he's done a pretty good job with social media, and I believe most of his content is really coming from the right place. From an information perspective. It's like, it's not wrong information. It's good information. It's coming from experience. It's coming from previous knowledge and some practice. But I was watching and I just had a funny feeling about it. I was like, all this is coming out right now. It's coming out in there's a lot of volume and there's a lot of frequency to this. It was almost like it kind of automatically got switched on. And I was like there was some planning going into it. And I was like, okay, this dude's hustling. Like I know how much time it takes to put this together and the commitment you have to make in order to putting this out. And so like, this is either because this person is super passionate about this, loves this, and really believes wholeheartedly in what they're doing. This is coming from a good place, or the other shoe is going to drop. And that other shoe is a product. And that is exactly what happened with this one person. And I was kind of, you know what? I knew it. But just like, that's not a bad thing. Like, I get it. You have to have a marketing strategy to sell your product or whatever, but I don't want to question all the other stuff that you put out, the intention that you said you were putting it out there for, and what I wanted to believe. I don't want to have that in question. And so as a result, like, just to double check, like, I started asking around my buddies. At this point, like, I have, the best part about this job is just making friends and learning and meeting new people.
But it is your show and your integrity.
That's exactly. Involved, so yes. And if I'm going to have people on, like, I'm going to do my best to make sure I bring people on that I feel really good about bringing on. And, just to make sure my meter, my thermometer there on this person was was fairly correct because I felt like I had a pretty good reading. I reached out to a couple other people. I'm like, hey man, like just quick opinion. Have you had any interaction with this individual, you know, or whatever? And one of these guys, somebody I respect highly, goes, I had all the interaction I needed to have with that person, and I don't need to have any more. And so I'm like, okay, so my thermometer on this and testing this temperature wasn't too far off. My instincts were pretty right. And I asked another person, like, yeah, just I got questions about that too, man. You're not weird. Like this doesn't feel right either to me. Here's my point with this, and that is, I think if people did that more often, more frequently, and reached out, like even to people like you might not even know Amir, right? But if you're going down a path as a consumer, as a new person in this industry, or you're looking to build community, or you're unsure that you might be in the right one, or maybe you're unsure about, am I in the right like community within the community in my local region, or these people, or whatever else, and you have questions, you should feel good about reaching out to other people like you, that, you know, I would, to get an honest opinion. And sometimes, because I get those questions all the time, like, hey, have you heard about this instructor? And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I've had great experiences and I've heard great things. Sometimes, like, I haven't had an experience personally with this person, but I hear only good things. Hang tight. Let me confirm a couple of things. I'll call a couple other people, or you know, I'll reach out and I'll hit you back. I'm happy to do that. And then sometimes it's like, man, I don't know. I really don't know. But here's a person you might reach out to to get something on that. And I'm never gonna say like this person's shit. I like, again, this other guy was just like, man, I know everything I need to know. That's all he had to say to me. You know, and I was like, okay,
it's deeper at that point.
But yeah, and he's like, I'm not gonna talk shit. I'm just gonna tell you,
hey man,
your instincts aren't weird.
That's good on your point, because like a lot of people will bring that controversial person simply just to increase that view, increase that engagement. But it's like, well, why? You know, you're now focusing on a negative aspect, like I was saying before. It's like, no, let's go towards that positive aspect.
Right. So again, I think as long as there's guys out there doing like what you're doing, it provides more of a platform and a space. I heard this term used before, like a container. It's almost like a safe container for people to reach out and go, you know what, let me buzz this by Amir. You know, because the guy doesn't seem to have the same agenda as maybe a lot of other people. He's going to give me, you know, some honest feedback, and he's not going to bullshit me. I mean, you brought up Joe. Like, Joe's going to give you he's not going to sugarcoat it. Somebody reached out to me about Jeff Nichols out at Performance First the other day, like, you know, about his program and whatever. And I go, you want to know about Jeff's program? Fucking ask Jeff. Yeah, because he's going to tell you exactly what it is, and within 5 minutes, you're going to know whether it's the right thing for you, whether he's the right guy for you, and he'll tell you. Whether you're the right guy for that program or not. Like, you going back to the ego and the being sensitive and whatever else, you first have to be okay with the response that you're going to get, knowing that you could get either way. Like, I'm not, because you may not, your feeling might be really good about somebody that somebody else is like, yeah, this there's some questions there. You should reach out here and get this guy's experience, which might not validate your thinking right now. Right. And that means you may need to spend a little bit more time going down that path. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because for me, this was going down that path. And it's just confirming all the things that I thought I knew and all the things that people have already told me about you. And I wanted to give you a platform to talk about that and put it out there in a different way than having to have it carved through or be limited to a 30-second, you know, reel or whatever.
Everybody's quick dopamine fix.
That's the great part about these long form things is to introduce people maybe in a different way, and then also have them tell their story in the way that they need to tell it, and give them opportunity to fill in gaps, which you mentioned earlier.
And that's like, and honestly, I can't begin to thank you enough to be able to do this. And it's good that people are seeing it more, and people are really starting to notice it and asking questions. Like when people ask me, or even when people criticize me, like there are people that I know that are in a certain space that will criticize me. Hey man, you mind if I tell you something? I'm like, yeah, dude, it's cool. And then they'll explain to me, maybe I might have done something wrong. You know, it's cool. I don't want to overstep it. I'm like, you're not overstepping anything, dude. Like, why do you think I'm going to, you really personally believe I'm going to take offense to this? Like, I want this. I want this dialogue. I want to learn. I want to get better. And I think that's what a lot of people get weirded out by, man. It's just this like, oh, wait a minute. You're not like everybody else. That's so weird. Yeah, man. Because again, this isn't my entire life. You know,
you're not that. Well, I don't want to say attached to it, but the risk to reward, there's way more reward than there is risk for you in maintaining that integrity and that consistency and continuity in what you're putting out. Again, refreshing. I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that are doing the same thing or thinking about or want to do the same thing. And I think this would be inspiring if it's inspiring for me just to, again, sit down and kind of see the process that you've gone through and understand how normal, like my own process has been, if we compare and contrast.
I tell people, I drove a forklift at Costco. Like, wait, what? Yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah, man.
I'm like, what?
Like I was just a fucking trainer. I was just a dude, on the training floor, and things happened over time, and I made choices, and I really pushed to learn more about certain things, which has put me here. Now, this is we're creating, right? Yeah. And creating not like in content creation, but we're creating those opportunities, right? And
informational content creation.
Yeah. And this is creating opportunities to like take things to the next level and understand things at a deeper level so that we can continue to provide value. So I think people will take a lot away from this.
I'm glad.
I appreciate the time that you spent with me. So before we wrap it up, I called out the handle at the beginning. It's at SandManGoesPewPew.
Yeah, SandManGoesPewPew. And then my company page is All Eyes Defense.
Okay. What are they going to find when they get there?
For pretty much, it's going to be more information, not only of what I can teach, but also me sharing other people, cool. Like Kyle, like Cord. That's what I'm trying to, again, that collaborative effort.
Yep.
Sharing what I think is a positive influence, not based on your social media following, but based on my interactions with you, my actual interactions with you. Again, do I have problems with other people? No, man, it's all good. But yeah, and it was funny because like with this whole social media realm, it was never intended to try to really teach, but now it has, and now I become more motivated to do so.
Awesome.
So that's what ultimately you're going to see that. You're going to see a lot of sharing. You're going to see, you may not see a whole bunch of edgy, gray-toned videos, which is, yeah, man, to each their own. I'll do a little bit of those because I got a little camera guy that helps me out as well. But mostly it's going to be as much information as I have. I have also a YouTube channel for it as well.
Okay.
But that's going to be more on the long form video, but trying to keep up with the attention span of a walnut.
I get it, man. I get it.
Probably the most frustrating thing. It's funny because you'll see some of these grids or some of these little graphs. They'll even show you with your business page, and you'll notice people will fall off after like 10 seconds, and you're like,
oh,
really?
That's the trick. Yeah.
That's what your attention span is?
We got some tricks. We'll have to talk off.
Oh, okay. Hey, man, please.
We'll get you connected with my guy, Eli Helfman from 8482 Media.
Okay.
Dude's a wizard, is a genius on this. Yeah. Like
definitely have to connect.
Like that 10-second attention span. There's some things that can clean that up.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Since I even brought that up, if people are interested in knowing more about that, actually, Eli and I have actually talked about putting out some content, making some content that he's actually already created available for people to help with that.
Yeah.
Particularly in this space because of how, we're already dealing with shadow banning and rules and violations and things like that. How are some of the things that you can do that? But that's the reality of doing what you're doing and kind of like what do people find when they get there? These are all the things that have to happen on the back end of owning a business, right? And it's not just about having a cool Instagram page.
Yeah, so, it's not super edgy all the time. No, man, it's just, it's what it is.
But you don't have to have, I'll tell you this, you don't have to have gray tone videos. And, again, we talked about sleazy chicks with tape on their nipples to get people to watch past 10 seconds. And with that, I think that's a really good thing for people to hear what you just said there. Keep sending that message, man, because again, there's nothing wrong with a little entertainment from time to time, but when that scale just starts to tip and you're just like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah.
I like a flashy video as much as anybody else. What I don't like is having to sift through all the flashy videos to get to something with some.
And it was something
substance.
I even noticed on like my Explore page, like all of it was like chicks in yoga pants. And I'm like, dude, is there something else? Like I would look at watches, trucks, off-roading stuff, still give me chicks in yoga pants. I'm like, no. And I would have to deliberately say, do I think it's bad to look? No, dude, it's fine. The same thing with chicks looking at odd dudes.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. But do not make my entire algorithm based on that.
Right.
So you'd always have to be like, no, not interested.
Not interested.
Exactly. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. So it's like you started to notice the balance, and it's blatantly obvious too. Yeah. It's like no matter how much people are saying it's not, it's like, bro, it's what it is. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. And it's unfortunate because, you know, especially in the firearms community, like with, you know, a lot of the female shooters that are in it, like we have an opportunity to really like expand on the female aspect.
Oh, it's a really good point.
Yeah, you know, and it's something oftentimes with a lot of companies you'll see that they'll just use, okay, well, this chick's hot and the story, and then we'll make her a mediocre shooter tops. We won't really put like...
You are right.
You know, and I'm sure it's going to probably hurt some people's feelings, but hey, man, you know what? I've started to not give a shit. Yep. Like, you know, if your feelings get hurt, hey, man, that's not my concern.
That's actually just a really good opportunity because I've one of the things I started like right from the beginning when we started more on the health and fitness side of the house on this podcast was trying to regularly have very strong women on the show from the industry and the surrounding industries at large. And I had some really strong folks on there, some physicians, some really intelligent ladies, business owners, and so forth. And as we got into the shooting space, it gets a little bit more diluted, right? It's very male dominated, much like fitness is in general, but very, very, very male dominated. So, you know, when we're getting into the shooting space, I think there's a lot of friction for females getting into the space, and a lot of it has to do with douchebags and douchebag videos, and also
companies who are just using it to sell.
Smart ladies are looking at this going, now here's a dude that used the hot chick, right, to sell his stuff. I don't want to be involved with that. That is not what I want to be involved with.
It turns a lot of people.
If I'm a female, that turns me off. Like, here we go again. Right? Is this what they got to do? They got to put hot chicks in, so their product must suck. Right? Versus the dudes are looking at the product must be great. They got 2 million views. Hot chicks guns. Hot chicks guns. Put it in my shopping cart. You know what else? So going back to like the female part of this shooting community, there are some really sharp females out there, and I don't think they get a lot of attention. And I don't know. I would love to have, you know, a few of them on to really talk through this part, particularly the culture piece. And you know where they feel the restrictions are, limitations are, and how to get around it. Because I got to tell you, there's been a couple times where I've been out there and I'm like, okay, so here we have somebody like a female shooting instructor, a female shooter, let's just put it that way, who is somehow popped up in my algorithm, right? And it's not in yoga. She's not wearing yoga pants, right? And so I'm watching it and I'm going, all right, that was great. Like this is good. This is very relatable. It's good information. I love what she's doing from the female component. And you can be pissed at me or not pissed at me, but I think it's important to show that side. I think it does resonate with a whole different type of population. I think we need that. I think it's important. And then I go, well, let me get into this person's feed and scroll. And lo and behold, I get down into there, and there's that same female that sounded so intelligent, right? That is. I'm not saying she's not, right? But she is. It's the same on the dude side of things, right?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, it's so intelligent, providing this great commentary, really good behind the gun. Now there she is in her fucking, underwear on a porch with and all you see is like, tits down with a gun in her lap. Like, now, why do we have to do that?
What bothers me the most is this: I have to be in what is it? I can have it both ways, but you can't. You cannot do that. It's like with me in the integrity aspect. With the integrity aspect, like, no, I'm not going to fall down that rabbit hole of making edgy, clickbaity content with whatever sleazy chicks. It's like, it's going to take me longer to build my brand, where some people, it's super quick to be able to do that. And I think it's unfortunate. And again, it's not a crack at them per se, but I think it's not really bringing the amount of women into the space as it should, because I've had a lot of females come up to me asking me about, firearms training, because they have undergone some kind of traumatic event, whether they've been domestically abused, whether they've been raped, whether they've been kidnapped, whatever it may be. And for them to open up to me, not only is it incredible, like I was like, oh my God, like my heart broke, but a lot of them would also say they don't know how to really get in that space because of that type of stuff that they would see. And oftentimes in this industry, people don't want to talk about that. They would go, no, because we don't want to cause issues. Hey man, you know what? I felt that way too at first, where I was like, man, I don't want to have problems. I don't want this. Nah, dude. At the end of the day, a lot of people are not really giving a shit about you. It's like you, but yet on the other flip side, it's like I owe them somehow. It's like, well, no, why do I owe you? I don't owe you anything.
No.
And I think that's what's ultimately unfortunate about that whole situation. Sure, if you want to sell, some gear, something with some super hot banging chick, that's cool, man. But do not make that your entire brand.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not standing on its own.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what the problem is. But let's also be honest with ourselves. Same thing with the Leo guys. I mean, how many times have we seen brands being sold based on this high-speed ninja guy's background?
Oh, it's
so
every day.
It's the same exact thing. Well, there was a company that said, I think if I remember correctly, I can't remember the company, but they were like, we're selling this thing because it's SOF approved. What does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. Like,
I don't either, man.
Can you explain to me that? And then people are like, well, you're not in that community, so you can't really.
Oh, so I'm too dumb to know.
But no, you're not telling me what that means. Like, oh, because he's shilling something, just like this chick or this influencer is shilling something, but because he did something, now it's absolved.
It's okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, but that, dude, you get so, like, it's like a mental mind fuck half the time.
Yeah.
And I'm so tired and burnt out. That's why I think with me right now, where like my empathy is still there, but now it's like, all right, dude, if I hurt your feelings, man, I don't really care. Unless you tell me that I said something that was like, not destructive, but disrespectful and offensive, then cool. But if you can't, then I'm right.
Then, and that said, like, is that really what you're doing out there? No. Like, what is that saying?
Let's be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what ends up happening. So
that last turn into the female thing, that never gets covered on that show. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Because people get scared of it. And people oftentimes, even myself, like, I would always be weird because I know some of these females. There's nothing wrong with them, like, at all.
No.
But you're
now
not.
There's a perception.
Yeah, but it's like, dude, that's all it is. Like, why don't we build a better perception? Like, still be sexy. You can still do all this cool shit. But then it's also like, well, how come it's like it's the age-old thing? Like, well, if I'm gonna be super sleazy, I demand men to respect me, but you don't even respect yourself.
Yeah, that is a tough. And I'm not gonna lie. I think it's tougher, right? It's gonna be tougher for them, and it's the way it is. It's the way the world works. I'm not saying it's right. It just is.
Yeah.
And whatever side of whatever things you want to lie on, there's that's the truth.
Yeah.
With a capital T.
Yeah.
Like, it just is the thing.
And I think people don't. It's hard for them to admit it to themselves, truthfully, because they don't want to have to deal with stuff.
So just in kind of wrapping up, I'm really glad you brought that component to the table. And I'll say it again for people listening. Like, if there are fantastic representatives from the shooting community, from the firearms training community, civilian, military, law enforcement, from that represent that are females that people recommend, I would love to know them. So this is my pitch. Like, have them reach out, or if you want to make an introduction, I would love that, because I think there's some things to be talked about there. And I for those ladies that are listening, that are like, yeah, well, the problem is we'll never be accepted because we weren't Navy SEALs and super high speed soft guys and whatever else, like we were just saying.
So the alternative is that, like, you have to be sleazy and, like, it's like, no, dude.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. I mean, look, like, you're being accepted. Somehow I'm being accepted. I'm just a dude, right? Who happens, and, like, for whatever reason, some of these guys that have run the highest speed, right, for an entire career, are okay talking to me, right? And other people, for that matter, when I get into their classes and see they're not treating anybody different because, female, male, background, no background, whatever, for any reason. They're just humans too.
Yeah.
I get where it could feel, weird trying to step in and understand how to do that. It's
discouraging to a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine it's for the same reasons it's discouraging for dudes to get into it that are maybe question their confidence or what they're bringing to the table, and how are they going to be looked at because they don't have that high speed background too, or something else. It's legit. I think it's legit, but I don't think it should not be talked about. So anyway, again, that's my pitch on.
And again, I think it's partly because people don't want to, start stuff. People don't want to, hurt companies. It's like, no, I get the marketing aspect. I truly do. But again, it's there, but we just, like, we're too ashamed to actually admit it. I don't know.
Or you're afraid.
Yeah.
You're afraid to admit that it's true.
Yeah.
And like, again, go back to that risk to reward. What's the risk I'm taking for supporting this, or for propping this person up, or whatever? And again, maybe they're not the highest speed shooter in the world, but it's providing good content, and they've got, they're doing things to help the community grow in a positive way. We should be talking about this.
Yeah, this industry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right.
This industry is plagued with a lot of false idols. A lot of people will turn to a lot of other people, whether it's male Leo guys, chicks, all these people, whatever, they'll turn them into these demigods. And when I see these people, I'm just like, hey man, what's up? Like, that's it. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, I gotta take a picture with you. The only person that I really kind of geeked out over was Jerry Michalik. But that's Jerry Michalik. Like, let's be honest with ourselves.
Okay.
You know, and I think people, if we start really getting out of that aspect of it, maybe it'll start to turn. But if we keep turning people into these, like, the second coming of Christ all the time, like, you know, I'm like, dude, and then like negative stuff comes out, like we were talking about earlier, like, dude, people want to put out their entire stuff out on the world. And I'm like,
yeah,
bro, why?
Right.
You know, and then you see something and then they do something you don't like. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man,
this person's different than I thought they were.
I can't believe, well, because you're making them seem like they're like the Jesus of stuff. And it's like, nah, dude, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. Like, so try to attract towards other and good folk.
Yeah. Going back, maybe the reason more of the ladies aren't jumping in on this is because we use the word chick. I don't know. But I bet I called the dudes dudes. So, you know, to me, it's the same.
No, there's a lot of...
But I'm just bringing that up as like, well, that's the reason, because you're not, you know, being respectful. Well, here's the other thing. If you're going to be in this space, you got to have fucking tough skin.
Yeah.
Your feelings can't get hurt all the time. It's not that we don't, that I don't respect you. I'm just me. Yeah. Right. So if that's not something that you want to get involved with, well, then don't, because, but at the same time, I get where people will be like, where maybe there's a lady out there just going, well, as long as you keep referring to us as chicks, then we're not getting in here. Sorry, I'm not sorry. I mean, again, going back to like, if I hurt your feelings, like, I'm not intentionally trying to hurt your feelings, but I'm also, I can't walk around not being me. So
and it's also like, dude, you and I don't live in an echo chamber.
Fuck no.
Yeah, I like this whole...
It's so boring in there,
and
man.
It's so funny to see people in this community talk about echo chambers while simultaneously being in an echo chamber.
It's so ironic.
I can't believe... And then it's like, dude, I think what's even more ironic is you know, somebody will call out said influencer who has this background on something, but then all of a sudden will get mad about it and be like, I can't believe we need more unity in this industry. But I'm like, there's unity unless there's organized hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yet, if you want unity, we need to pull the titles out. Oh, okay. And I get it. They all have their space in their lane. I get it. But if you are constantly going to push a background in front of my face, I'm going to go on to the next person. You know, and that's what a lot of people seem to not really get. And I'm sure somebody's going to be like, well, I sacrifice. I'm like, dude, no one's discrediting. Like, I oftentimes look up to a lot of these individuals. But like, if
let's not make it something that it isn't.
Yeah, but if you think I'm going to kiss your ass and I'm going to like kiss your feet on,
you're not entitled to anything. Yeah, I think that shit. You brought up a few names like, you know, Pannone and Dawson and you know, some of those other guys that they don't, and they
don't shove it down your face.
They're very upfront. They're actually very cautious about ever even saying it, and they didn't build their careers based on it. Yeah. And that's not what they're doing at all. And I think that's So I want to believe, because I see it happening, and I see again going circles within circles. I see those circles going, you know, like they're almost. You better be careful. Let's just say if you're bringing up a resume, like it better be for a purpose. Yeah. Not as a defense. Yeah. Right? There better be some context behind that makes sense for whatever it is that you're talking about. Not, you should listen to me because that's that entitlement piece. Yeah. And to me, that ends up turning into a very sad situation for those people that are trying to leverage it.
Because it inhibits the growth.
It's not that I don't respect you. Yeah. Right? Or respect that. Like again, like I've even made a point to this when I've heard people that have those backgrounds almost be a little bit self-deprecating and time them out mid-podcast and go, no, hold on a second though, man, because I don't think that that's okay. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But I also, you know, that's a two-way street. You can't be holding it up as like, this is the reason I should be listened to either, but to self-deprecate and think that you can't, that there isn't value in it, that I can't get behind either. Yeah. So there's a balance there, but yes, I think there's a very solid group of individuals, let's call them influencers within our space that are doing that won't demand that and appreciate that people aren't constantly asking them those questions and aren't going to try and make a living on it. And so, you know, again, for those people that are outside, you know, looking in going, well, yeah, again, Amir doesn't have a background. So what qualifies him? If you listen to this, like there's a lot of things that qualify him. And again, I think if you get out there and you talk to other people and as you begin instructing more people and get out there, then those people will be your advocates and they will tell you why you won't have to say as much as even you did today. And again, and as long as you just keep doing what you're doing, man, I'll be the first one. As soon as that first class hits the fucking schedule, dude, you call me, dude. I'm coming.
I appreciate you, man. Dude, like I said, it means the world. It just means the world in the sense that, like, I never thought I'd be in this and going this route. And I'm glad that I helped, because what's funny about this whole helping thing, I was trying to get into medicine. And I was always trying to get into medicine because I thought I'd be able to help the community. And I thought that was the only way to do it. Didn't get into it. So, shit, now I'm in, what am I going to do next? You know, things happened. And then now I can also help people now in a sense that where I give them the tools to be able to give them that foundation to learn how to defend themselves in a situation.
That's community service, man.
Yeah, like, so for me, it's like, oh shit, like I'm still able to help. Oh wow, because again, I was always under the, because culturally, dude, Egyptians, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, like, it's always like you're either a doctor, pharmacist, engineer, or lawyer.
I get that.
There's nothing else that exists in the world. And I was always under the impression, well, doctor, that's the highest regard. And it's like, no, man, there's other ways of benefiting the community. And I started to notice it, especially with people coming to me being like, hey, man, I want to buy stuff. Like, I want to be able to train like you and all this. So now they understand the whole being aware, and not only that, but the idea of self-preservation. So, you know, but I'm glad, man. I'm glad people are seeing it.
In many ways, for me, that's a higher duty than being a doctor.
Yeah, man, to each their own, you know?
To each their own.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. I've had doctors come up to me, and like nurses and all this type of stuff. And again, they were in a different space like that. We don't want to do that. But then see it, and they're just like, oh, wow, okay, maybe. And then they see what I do, because you see, obviously, on my page, I keep it very apolitical. Like, I'm not like, just Democrats, Republicans, all this stuff. There'll be a few things I say here and there, but I always keep it like information-based. You know, and I think that's ultimately what people really started to lead towards, because people are just sick of the bullshit, man. People are like, bro, I don't want to hear negative bullshit all the time.
Yeah, it's tough.
You know, it's always in your face. And that was the other thing with like the negative aspects of the community. That's all you see now, is how much X, Y, and Z sucks. And this is why mine is better. It's like, dude, can we focus on something else now?
If that's all you have to offer is that, then I got questions.
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't have questions anymore, man. And that's just kind of who you are, where you're coming from. You know, from the handshake that we made several months ago, 6 or 8 months ago now, I guess it was 7 months ago now, to where we are now. I'm super stoked that this opportunity came up. I cannot thank you enough for making the drive to be here. I know it was a commitment for today. I know you had to take some time off, and for that, I am eternally grateful.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I cannot wait to see where this thing goes.
Yeah, same.
I will forever be a fan of the things that you put that you're putting out there, and how you're doing it. And you know, as a guy who started this thing to bring people, like-minded people together to build, you know, community and support one another, I think I owe you a debt of gratitude there as well for fighting the fight.
Yeah, what I really appreciate about you is that you're bringing like also the same idea, which is you will bring people on who don't have a large following, who you know, give them a voice as well. Which is, if we see again that whole circle jerking thing, like it will just be based on, oh, we all have large social media followings. Cool, I can go expand and we can explore reach. This is like you're like legitimately bringing different point of views into the argument.
That's why I started the whole thing, man. I want to hear.
I commend you for that, man.
Yeah, I want to talk to the obscure people. You know, like when obscure obscure really just means they may just not have that huge following on whatever social media platform, but they have something. And like again, I said this before. Like I go to classes, I study characters, I study the people.
Good.
Call it a character flaw. It can really fuck me up sometimes. I just really get into all the things.
Same with me. I have a degree in psychology.
Yeah,
so I get it.
I'm really intrigued by that. And when I find something, you know, that I find is interesting, then I wait a little bit and I go, you know, I got a hunch. You know, if I have a hunch that it'll interest other people, I'll roll with it. Because all I want to do is, like you, bring value to the thing, and you know, hopefully people take away value from this as per usual. But again, man, thanks for coming down. I appreciate you. And
thank you.
Hopefully it'll be sooner than later before we can go out and shoot together.
I'm down.
Hang.
Let's do it.
All right,
bro, we're going to set some rounds, whatever. Whether it be pistol, carbine, long gun, I'm down.
All right. Appreciate you, dude. Thanks, man.
All right, brother, man. Thank you.